5 months after our marriage officially ended. I looked down at my sleeping baby son and remembered the night it all began. 3 days after I gave birth, my husband walked into the hospital room with a cheap bouquet of flowers and a perfect smile. He took a few photos with the baby, posted them online as a proud father, and left less than 30 minutes later. That night, I woke up to find him standing beside the crib. I pretended to be asleep. As he leaned down, I heard him whisper, "This child is worth $15 million. All I need is for his mother to disappear." In that moment, I understood something horrifying. Thank you so much for being here. Sharing this journey with you means everything to me. I'm curious, where in the world are you right now? Comment your city or country so we can connect. And a quick reminder. While some details are fictionalized for storytelling, the lessons here are meaningful and worth remembering. The morphine was wearing off. I could feel it. The dull, insistent ache spreading across my abdomen where the surgeon had cut me open 3 hours ago to bring Finn into the world. My son. 7B 4 ounce. Perfect tiny fingers. A cry that sounded like a rusty door hinge, but somehow made my heart explode with a love I didn't know existed. I was 30 years old. I'd built a decent career as a graphic designer. I'd traveled to 12 countries. I thought I understood what it meant to feel something. But nothing. Nothing prepared me for the way Finn looked at me when the nurse placed him on my chest in the operating room. His dark blue eyes unfocused but searching, like he was trying to memorize my face. "Mrs. Ashford." A nurse poked her head into my room at Dell Children's Hospital. "Your husband is here." I tried to sit up straighter, wincing. The 4 in my left hand tugged. My throat was dry from the anesthesia. "Send him in." Declan walked in carrying a bouquet of supermarket roses. The kind you grab at the checkout counter when you realize you forgot something important. He was wearing his workload navy suit. Crisp white shirt tie loosened just enough to look casual. At 34, Declan Ashford still had that clean-cut all-American look that had made me fall for him 6 years ago. Sandy blonde hair. Strong jaw. The kind of smile that belonged on a toothpaste commercial. "Hey babe." He leaned down, kissed my forehead like I was his sick grandmother, and immediately turned to the clear plastic bassinet where Finn was sleeping. "Wow. He's really here?" "Yeah." I watched him carefully. "He is." Declan pulled out his phone. I told myself it was normal. New dads document everything. Right. He took a dozen photos. Finn's tiny fist. Finn yawning. Finn wrapped in the striped hospital blanket. Then he scooped Finn up a little too awkwardly, like he was holding a football, and asked a passing nurse to take a picture of them together. "Get my good side," he joked. The nurse smiled politely and snapped the photo. Declan immediately started typing on his phone, one hand cradling Finn against his chest. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Posting it. Everyone's been asking." He held up the screen so I could see a perfectly filtered photo of him and Finn. Caption reading, "Welcome to the world. Finn Ashford. Dad's here for you. Blessed dad new beginnings." Something cold slithered through my chest. He tagged the location. In Dell Children's Hospital. Austin. But he hadn't tagged me. "Declan." I said slowly. "You didn't mention me in the post." He glanced up. Distracted. "Huh. Oh. I figured you'd post your own thing. I just had major surgery." "I know. Babe. You're a warrior." He said it the way you'd compliment someone's casserole, polite, automatic. Already thinking about something else. His phone buzzed. He checked it. Type something back. I saw his jaw tighten. "Who's texting you?" "Work stuff." He handed Finn back to me too quickly, like he was relieved to be rid of the responsibility. "I should get going. I have an early meeting tomorrow. It's only 7:00 p.m. "Yeah. But traffic's insane. He kissed my forehead again. Same spot. Same lack of warmth. Get some rest. I'll come back tomorrow. He left before I could say anything else. I looked down at Finn. He was asleep. His tiny chest rising and falling. I touched his cheeks softer than anything I'd ever felt. It's just you and me. Buddy, I whispered. That night, I couldn't sleep. Partly because of the pain. Partly because the hospital room was never really quiet, nurses checking vitals every 2 hours. The beeping of monitors. A baby crying somewhere down the hall. But mostly because my brain wouldn't shut off. Declan had been distant during my pregnancy. I told myself it was stress. He worked as a financial analyst at a mid-sized firm downtown. And he'd been complaining about a demanding client for months. But tonight, something felt off. I reached for my phone on the bedside table. Opened Instagram. Found Declan's post. 347 likes already. Comments pouring in. Congrats. Man. He's beautiful. You're going to be an amazing dad. I scrolled down. Someone had commented. Dude. Weren't you just at the Brixton? The Brixton. A bar downtown. I checked the timestamp on the comment posted 20 minutes after Declan's hospital photo. I opened Google Maps. Checked Declan's location history. Something he'd never bothered to turn off because he had nothing to hide. Right. 7:14 p.m. Dell Children's Hospital. 7:46 p.m. The Brixton Bar. 6th Street. He'd been at the hospital for 32 minutes. 32 minutes to meet his newborn son. I felt something crack inside me. Not break. Not yet. Just crack. Around 2 in the morning. I woke up to the sound of footsteps. Declan was standing next to Finn's bassinet. I kept my eyes half closed. Pretending to sleep. My heart started pounding. Why was he here? He'd left hours ago. He was staring down at Finn. His face unreadable in the dim glow of the hospital room. Then he leaned closer. So close I thought he might kiss Finn's forehead. Instead, he whispered. You're worth $15 million. Kid. All I need is for your mom to disappear. I stopped breathing. He straightened up. Checked his phone. And walked out. I lay there frozen. My mind racing. $15 million. What the hell was he talking about? The next morning. Dr. Bennett came in for rounds. Sophia Bennett had been my OBGYN for the past 8 months. A calm, nonsense woman in her mid-40s with sharp eyes and a dry sense of humor. She checked my incision. Asked how I was feeling. And then pulled up my chart on her tablet. Mrs. Ashford. She said slowly. I need to clarify something. During your prenatal visits, did you ever express concerns about postpartum psychosis? I blinked. What? No. Absolutely not. Why? She turned the tablet toward me. There in the notes section of my electronic medical record was a line I'd never seen before. Patient expresses concern about potential postpartum psychosis tendency. Discussed risk factors. Patient appears anxious. I never said that. My voice came out sharper than I intended. I didn't. I swear. Dr. Bennett frowned. That's odd. This note is dated January 8th. That was your last appointment before delivery. I remember that appointment. We talked about my birth plan. About pain management. I never said anything about postpartum psychosis. She tapped the screen scrolling through the metadata. The note was added to your file at 2:37 a.m. on January 15th. January 15th. 2 days ago. The night I gave birth. Who added it? I asked. My hands shaking. It says here it was entered under my credentials. Dr. Bennett said slowly. But I didn't write this. I wasn't even in the hospital at 2:37 a.m. I was at a medical conference in San Antonio. She looked at me and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not suspicion. Concern. Mrs. Ashford. She said quietly. Someone tampered with your medical records. I sat there staring at that line in my chart. And Declan's voice echoed in my head. All I need is for your mom to disappear. And suddenly I understood this wasn't an accident. This was a trap. The Uber driver helped me with the car seat. I stood on the curb outside Dell Children's Hospital. Finn strapped into the infant carrier I'd practiced installing a dozen times during my 3rd trimester. The carrier felt heavier than I expected. Not because of Finn's 7 pounds. But because everything felt heavier now. My body. My chest. The silence where Declan should have been. You need help getting upstairs? The driver asked. He was maybe 60 with kind eyes and a Longhorns cap. I'm okay. I lied. Thank you. He didn't look convinced. But he nodded and drove off. I took a breath, sharp. Painful. My incision pulling. And carried Finn into our apartment building. The apartment smelled like old Thai food and something sour I couldn't identify. I set the car seat down in the living room and looked around. Declan hadn't cleaned. There were beer bottles on the coffee table. A pizza box open on the counter. 2 slices congealed and grey. His gym bag in the middle of the floor like a landmine I was supposed to step around. Finn started to fuss. I lifted him out of the carrier, wincing at the sharp pull in my abdomen, and sank onto the couch. He latched onto my breast immediately, his tiny hand curling against my skin. I checked my phone. One text from Declan sent 3 hours ago. Busy with an important meeting. You can get home on your own. Right. No. How are you feeling? No. Is Finn okay? No. I'm sorry I'm not there. Just an assumption that I'd figure it out. I typed back. We're home. No response. At 11 p.m. I heard the key in the lock. I was on the couch. Finn asleep on my chest. My body too exhausted to move him to the bassinet we'd set up in the bedroom. I hadn't eaten since the hospital lunch tray 6 hours ago. My phone was at 2% battery. I was wearing the same maternity leggings I'd had on for 3 days. Declan walked in. He was still wearing his suit. But the tie was gone and his shirt was half untucked. He smelled like whiskey and something sharp cologne I didn't recognize. Hey, he said. Not looking at me. He set his briefcase down. Pulled out his laptop. And sat at the dining table. You didn't ask how we're doing, I said quietly. I figured you'd tell me if something was wrong. I just got out of the hospital. Declan. With a newborn alone. He rubbed his face. Sighed like I was exhausting him. Celine. I had a meeting. I told you at 11 p.m. Client dinner. Ran late. He opened the laptop and I heard the click of keys. Then he pulled a stack of papers from his briefcase and slid them across the table toward me. What's that? I asked. Divorce papers. Sign them. For a second. I thought I'd misheard. What? He didn't look up. You heard me. I stared at him. Finn stirred against my chest and I instinctively tightened my arms around him. Declan. I said slowly. Trying to keep my voice steady. I gave birth to your son 3 days ago. Yeah. He finally looked at me and his eyes were flat. Empty. And that doesn't change anything. What are you talking about? I don't love you. Celine. He said it the way you'd say I don't like olives, casual, factual, like it was something I should have already known. I never did this. He gestured vaguely at me at Finn at the apartment. Was a mistake. I felt something crack open inside me. Something cold and dark flooding in. A mistake. I repeated. Yeah. Our son is a mistake. I didn't say that. You just did. He stood up. Shoving his hands into his pockets. Look. I'm trying to be civil here. Sign the papers. Make this easy. I set Finn down gently in his bassinet and stood my legs shaking. I walked to the table and picked up the stack of papers. The letterhead at the top read, Eleanor Ashford and Associates Family Law. His mother. His mother had drawn up the divorce papers. I flipped through the pages. My hands trembling. Legal jargon I didn't fully understand. But one section was highlighted in yellow. Custody arrangement petitioner Declan Ashford requests sole legal and physical custody of minor child Finn Harper Ashford. Respondent Celine Harper to be granted supervised visitation 2 times per month for 4 hours per visit subject to court approval. You want full custody? I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Yeah. What? Because I can provide for him. You can't. I looked up at him and something snapped. You can't even remember the last time you changed a diaper. You don't know what formula he takes. You don't know his pediatrician's name. I'll learn. You don't want to learn, Declan. You've never wanted this. He stepped closer and for the first time I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not love. Not regret. Something colder. It doesn't matter what I want, he said quietly. What matters is what I can prove in court. And I can prove that I have a stable income, a clean record, and a mother who's one of the best family lawyers in Texas. What do you have? Celine. I stared at him. A job you just lost. He continued. A 1-bedroom apartment you can't afford and a medical record that says you're mentally unstable. My blood went cold. What are you talking about? He smiled just a little. Just enough to make my stomach turn. You'll find out. Sign the papers or I'll make this ugly. He grabbed his laptop and walked toward the bedroom, leaving me standing there, the divorce papers shaking in my hands. After he disappeared upstairs, I sat at the table, my mind racing. A medical record that says, you're mentally unstable. The note in my chart. The one Dr. Bennett found. The one that said I was worried about postpartum psychosis. Declan knew about it. How? I opened my phone and Googled Ashford Family Trust Fund. The first result was an article from the Austin Business Journal dated March 2020. Oil exec Jonathan Ashford establishes $15 million trust for future grandchildren. I clicked it. Skimmed the article. My heart pounded harder with every sentence. Jonathan Ashford, 80, retired CEO of Ashford Energy Solutions, announced the creation of a $15 million trust fund for his future grandchildren. Family is everything. Ashford said the trust stipulates that funds will be managed by the custodial parent until the child reaches age 18. Custodial parent sole custody. I looked at the divorce papers again at the highlighted section and I understood. Declan didn't want Finn. He wanted the key to $15 million and I was standing in his way. The office was on the 4th floor of a glass building downtown, wedged between a coffee shop and a vegan restaurant with a line out the door. I stood in the elevator, Finn strapped to my chest in the baby carrier, and watched the numbers climb. My incision still HDHD. My breasts were leaking through the nursing pads I'd forgotten to change that morning. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours straight in 10 days. But I was here. The doors opened. A brass plaque on the wall read Sarah Mitchell Family Law. I walked in. The receptionist, a woman in her 20s with bright red lipstick, smiled warmly when she saw Finn. You must be Celine. Sarah's expecting you. Can I get you some water? Coffee. Water would be great. She handed me a bottle and gestured toward a door at the end of the hall. Go on in. I pushed the door open. Sarah Mitchell stood up from behind her desk. She was 42, according to the bio I'd found online. But she looked younger. Dark hair pulled into a neat bun. Sharp grey suit. Minimal jewelry except for a silver watch. Her handshake was firm, confident. Celine. Thanks for coming in. Her eyes flicked to Finn. still asleep against my chest. And this must be Finn. Yeah. I sat down, carefully adjusting the carrier. He's been a champ today. I think he knows this is important. Sarah smiled. But it faded quickly. She pulled out a yellow legal pad and clicked her pen. I read the summary you sent me. Divorce petition filed by your husband. Custody dispute. Altered medical records. A $15 million trust fund. She looked up at me. Is that accurate? Yes. Okay. She leaned back in her chair, studying me. Before we go any further, I need to ask. Are you safe right now? Is Declan a physical threat to you or Finn? No. He's not violent. He's just, I hesitated. Cold. Manipulative. He wants me gone. And the medical records. You're certain you never said anything about postpartum psychosis? I swear to God I didn't. Dr. Bennett. My OB confirmed it. Someone added that note 2 days after Finn was born at 2:30 in the morning. Sarah wrote something down. Who has access to your medical records? I don't know. The hospital said it was entered under Dr. Bennett's credentials. But she wasn't even in Austin that night. She was at a conference in San Antonio. So, someone with tech access. Sarah tapped her pen against the pad. That's medical fraud. Federal crime. If we can prove who did it, they're looking at serious jail time. I felt a flicker of hope. Can we prove it? Maybe. We'll need the hospital to run an audit. A detailed log of who accessed your file and when. They're required by law to keep those records. Will they cooperate? They have to. HIPAA violations are a big deal. Hospitals don't mess around with that. She made another note. But here's the bigger picture. Celine. This isn't just about medical records. Your husband is building a narrative. A narrative. A story. In family court, whoever has the most convincing story usually wins. Declan's story is this. You're an unstable mother. You have a history of mental health concerns. You can't provide for Finn financially. He, on the other hand, is a successful analyst with a stable income and a mother who's one of the best family lawyers in the state. She paused. If the judge believes that story, you'll lose custody. And Declan will control that $15 million. My stomach turned. But it's not true. I know. But the truth doesn't matter if we can't prove it. That's where I come in. I looked down at Finn. His tiny hand curled against my collarbone. Sarah. I need to be honest with you. I don't have a lot of money. I lost my job. I have about $8,000 left in my savings. I don't know if I can afford. She held up a hand. Stop. Let me explain something. She pulled a folder from her desk and opened it. Inside was a brochure. Texas Mothers Defense Fund. I'm a member of this organization. She said. We're a nonprofit that provides legal assistance to mothers in abusive custody situations. I can take your case pro bono. That means free or on a contingency fee basis. What's that? Contingency fee means I only get paid if we win. And if we win, the court will order Declan to pay your legal fees. You won't owe me a dime. I stared at her. Why would you do that? Because I've seen too many women lose their kids to men like your husband. Men who use money and power to manipulate the system. She closed the folder. And because I believe you. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is going to be a fight. She picked up her pen again. Here's what we're going to do. Step 1. I'll file a motion with the hospital to audit your medical records. We need to find out who tampered with them and why. Step 2. I'm hiring a private investigator. Cole Webb. Former cop. Great at digging up dirt. He'll follow Declan. See if he's hiding anything. Affairs. Gambling. Whatever. Step 3. We gather evidence that you're a good mother. Testimonies from friends. Family. Your pediatric Ian. Photos. Videos. Anything that shows you taking care of Finn. Step 4. I'll file a counter petition. You'll ask for sole custody and we'll make Declan prove why he deserves it. I nodded, trying to absorb it all. What about his mother? Elelena? Sarah's expression hardened. Elelena Ashford is the best family lawyer I've ever gone up against. She's ruthless. She knows every trick in the book. And she hasn't lost a custody case in 25 years. She leaned forward. But Celine. Everyone loses eventually. And we have something Elelena doesn't. What's that? The truth. She slid a contract across the desk. If you want me to represent you, sign here. I read through it quickly. Pro bono representation contingency fee arrangement. Texas Mothers Defense Fund sponsorship. At the bottom. A line for my signature. I picked up the pen. My hand shook a little. Not from fear. From something else. Determination maybe. Or rage. I signed my name. Sarah smiled. Welcome to the fight. Celine. I looked down at Finn. Still asleep. Oblivious to the war that was about to be waged over him. I'm ready. I said. And I meant it. The coffee shop was one of those hipster places on South Congress. All exposed brick and Edison bulbs with a chalkboard menu listing drinks I couldn't pronounce. I'd picked it because it was public. Crowded. And far enough from my apartment that I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. I sat in the back corner. Been asleep in his stroller beside me. And waited. Cole Webb walked in at exactly 10:00 a.m. I recognized him immediately from the photo Sarah had sent. Tall. Maybe 61. With broad shoulders and the kind of build that said he worked out but didn't obsess over it. Dark hair going grey at the temples. Sharp eyes that scanned the room before landing on me. He wore jeans. A black jacket. And boots that looked like they'd seen some miles. He sat down across from me. Set a leather messenger bag on the table. And extended his hand. Celine. I'm Cole. His handshake was firm but not aggressive. Steady. Reassuring. Thanks for meeting me. I said. Of course. He glanced at Finn. How's he doing? Good. He's been sleeping better. Finally. That's good. Cole pulled a notebook from his bag. Sarah filled me in on your case. I've worked with her before. She's one of the best. If she's taking your side, you've got a fighter in your corner. She said the same thing about you. He smiled faintly. I do my job. That's all. He clicked his pen. Here's how this works. I'm going to follow your husband for 2 weeks. 24/7 surveillance. I'll document everywhere he goes. Everyone he meets. Every transaction he makes. If he's hiding something in affair gambling. Shady financial dealings. I'll find it. How do you I mean? Is that legal? Completely. Texas is a 1P party consent state for recording conversations and I can photograph anyone in a public place. I won't break into his house or hack his phone. That's illegal. But if he's out in the open, he's fair game. I nodded slowly. What if he notices you? He won't. Cole leaned back. I've been doing this for 15 years. I was a cop before this Austin PD Vice Unit. I know how to stay invisible. Okay. I took a breath. What do you need from me? His daily routine. Where he works. Where he lives. His car. His usual hangouts. Anything that helps me anticipate his movements. I told him everything I knew. Declan's office downtown. His gym on West 6th. The bars he liked. His silver Audi sedan. Cole wrote it all down. Good. I'll start tomorrow. 2 weeks later. Cole called me back to the same coffee shop. This time. He wasn't smiling. He slid a manila folder across the table. "You're going to want to look at this." I opened it. The first photo was taken outside the Fairmorn Hotel downtown. Declan in his suit walking toward the entrance. Behind him, a woman, blonde, maybe late 20s, carrying a designer purse. "Who's that?" I asked, though I already felt the answer crawling up my throat. "Vanessa Cole, 29. Marketing manager at a tech startup. They met 3 times over the past 2 weeks. Twice at the Fairmorn. Once at a wine bar on Rainy Street." He flipped to the next photo. Declan and Vanessa in the hotel parking garage kissing. I stared at it. I should have felt something: anger, betrayal, heartbreak. But all I felt was cold. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. "At least since October. Based on some text messages I was able to pull from public Wi-Fi networks they used." "He's not careful." "Of course he's not." I closed the folder. "What else?" Cole pulled out another set of photos. "He's also been gambling." The next image showed Declan walking into a building with blacked-out windows and a neon sign that said the Oasis. "That's an underground casino." Cole said technically illegal. But the cops don't bother with it because the owner has connections. Declan went twice in the past 2 weeks. Lost $18,000. My stomach dropped. $18,000. Yep. Cash. I watched him withdraw it from an ATM before he went in. I thought about the $8,000 I had left in my savings. About the unpaid hospital bills stacking up. About Declan asking me to sign away custody of our son. "His broke," I said slowly. "Not quite. But his in deep. And desperate people make mistakes." Cole pulled out a third set of documents. Bank statements. Printed screenshots. Handwritten notes. "This is where it gets interesting," he said on January 10th. 4 days before Finn was born. Declan withdrew $12,000 cash from his personal account. No explanation. Just cash. Okay. 3 days later, a guy named Greg Sullivan deposited $10,000 cash into his account. Sullivan's a known middleman. He brokers deals for people who don't want to be connected directly to illegal activity. 2 days after that, Sullivan wired $10,000 to a guy named Eric Lawson. My heart stopped. Eric Lawson. I repeated. "The IT guy who used to work at Dell Children's." Cole nodded. "The same one." I did some digging. Lawson was fired from the hospital in 2023 for violating security protocols. He's been freelancing since, mostly shady stuff. Hacking. Data. Manipulation. Identity theft. And Declan hired him. That's what it looks like. Declan pays Greg in cash to avoid a digital trail. Greg takes his cut and pays Eric. Eric logs into the hospital system using stolen credentials and alters your medical records. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "Can you prove it?" I asked. "Not yet. But this is enough to get Sarah moving. She can file a motion to subpoena Greg Sullivan's bank records and Eric Lawson's communications. If we can connect the dots legally, Declan's going down for fraud, tampering with medical records and conspiracy." That night, I sat on my couch with Finn on my chest and stared at the photos Cole had given me. Declan and Vanessa. Declan at the casino. Declan withdrawing cash at an ATM. His face blank like he was buying groceries instead of funding a felony. I thought about the man I'd married 6 years ago. The man who'd taken me to Barton Springs on our first date. Who'd laughed at my terrible jokes. Who'd promised me forever. That man was gone. Maybe he'd never existed. Sarah called me an hour later. Cole sent me his report. She said, "Celine, this is good. Really good. We've got motive. We've got financial desperation. And we've got a paper trail that leads straight to medical fraud. What do we do now?" I asked. Now we go on the offensive. The apartment was smaller than the one I'd shared with Declan. But it was mine. 1 bedroom. 1 bath. A kitchenette with a 2-burner stove and a fridge that hummed too loudly. North Austin near the Domain in a complex that smelled like fresh paint and someone else's cooking. The rent was $850 a month. Manageable. Barely if I stretched my savings and got freelance work soon. Finn was 6 weeks old. He'd started sleeping in 3-hour stretches at night, which felt like a miracle. I'd learned to shower in under 5 minutes. I'd learned to eat standing up. I'd learned that I was stronger than I thought. For the first time since Finn was born, I felt like I could breathe. That lasted exactly 3 days. The first pizza arrived at 8:00 p.m. on a Tuesday. I'd ordered it myself. A medium pepperoni from a place down the street. I paid the delivery guy, tipped him $5, and settled onto the couch with Finn asleep on my chest. At 8:40, the doorbell rang again. I frowned. Checked the peephole. Another delivery guy holding 2 pizza boxes. I didn't order those. I said through the door. Says here Celine Harper, this address. Confirmed via text. I didn't confirm anything. He looked annoyed. Lady. I got 6 more deliveries after this. You going to take these or not? I opened the door. I'm telling you. I didn't order them. He shrugged. Shoved a receipt at me. Sure enough. My name. My address. My phone number. Someone's pranking you then. But you still got to pay $42. I paid him fuming and took the pizzas inside. By 11 p.m. I'd had 5 more deliveries. Different restaurants. Different drivers. All confirmed via texts I never sent. By midnight, I'd spent $300 on pizza I didn't order. The next morning, I called every restaurant. They all said the same thing. Orders placed online confirmed via SMS to my number. Someone spoofing my phone. I told Cole when I called him. Or they hacked my account. Probably spoofing. He said. It's not hard. I'll look into it. But before he could, the second thing happened. 3 weeks later, I got an email from the design firm I'd freelanced for before Finn was born. Subject, your resignation. Hi Celine. We received your letter. We're sorry to see you go. But we understand. Best of luck with everything. Jennifer. I stared at the screen. Resignation letter. I called Jennifer immediately. I didn't resign. I don't know what you're talking about. Celine. You sent us an email last night. It had a scanned letter attached. What email address? Yours. celine.design@gmail.com. My stomach dropped. That was my email. Can you forward it to me? A minute later, the email appeared in my inbox. The letter was professional typed. Signed with a scanned version of my signature. Dear Jennifer, I am writing to inform you of my resignation effective immediately. Due to personal reasons, I am unable to continue working with the firm. Thank you for the opportunity. Sincerely, Celine Harper. I didn't write this. I said, my voice shaking. Someone hacked my email. Jennifer sighed. Celine, I don't know what to tell you. We can't just ignore a resignation letter. Please. I need this job. I have a 6-week-old baby and no income. I'm sorry. I really am. But we've already reassigned your projects. She hung up. I sat there staring at my phone. My hands trembling. $4,000 a month. Gone. The third thing happened a week later. I'd taken Finn to a pediatrician appointment in Round Rock, an hour north of Austin. He'd fallen asleep in the car seat on the way back. And I'd driven home in blissful silence. Feeling like maybe, just maybe, I was getting the hang of this. When I pulled into my apartment complex, my neighbor was waiting outside my door. Mrs. Patterson. 70-something, grey hair in a bun. The kind of woman who baked cookies for the mailman and knew everyone's business. Celine, she said. Her voice tight. We need to talk. Is everything okay? Not really. I hate to say this. But last night I heard your baby crying for 3 hours straight from 900 p.m. to midnight. I almost called the police. I blinked. What? Your baby crying non-stop? Mrs. Patterson. I wasn't even home last night. I took Finn to Round Rock for his appointment. We didn't get back until 11 o'clock and he was asleep the whole time. She frowned. Honey. I know what I heard. It came from your apartment. That's impossible. I'm not trying to cause trouble. I'm just saying if you're overwhelmed. There are resources. People who can help. She walked away before I could respond. I called Cole. Something's wrong. I said. My neighbor says she heard Finn crying for 3 hours last night. But I wasn't home. Finn was with me the entire time. Where do you keep your keys? On a hook by the door. Why? I'm coming over. Don't touch anything. Cole arrived 20 minutes later. He walked through my apartment slowly, methodically checking every room. When he got to the living room, he stopped. There. He pointed at the air vent above the couch. I looked up. What? He pulled a chair over, stood on it, and unscrewed the vent cover. Inside, wedged against the ductwork, was a small black device about the size of a phone. What is that? I asked. He pulled it out carefully, turned it over in his hands. Baby cry sound machine used in movies, training videos, stuff like that. This one's Wi-Fi enabled. Someone can trigger it remotely. My blood went cold. Someone put that in my apartment. Yeah. And they've been using it to make it sound like Finn's crying when he's not even here. He examined the device. This is sophisticated. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. Can you trace it? Maybe. He pulled out his phone. Took photos of the serial number. Give me a couple hours. 3 hours later. Cole called me back. I traced the device. It was ordered on Amazon 2 weeks ago. Shipped to AP.O. Box in Austin under the name Celeste Morgan. Who's that? Junior associate at Eleanor Ashford's law firm. 28 years old. She's been working for Eleanor for 3 years. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Eleanor's behind this. Eleanor or someone working for her. Either way. This is criminal harassment. Trespassing. Evidence tampering. If we can prove it, they're all going to jail. I called Sarah immediately. They're sabotaging me, I said, my voice shaking. The pizza. The fake resignation. The sound machine. They're trying to make me look like I'm losing it. I know, Sarah said quietly. And it's working. They're building a case that you're unstable, that you can't take care of Finn. If we go to court right now, they'll use all of this against you. So, what do? We fight back. But we need hard evidence. Not just the device. We need proof that Celeste or Eleanor or Declan ordered it. We need emails. Financial records. Something that connects them directly. How do we get that? Leave that to me. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment, Finn asleep in my arms, and stared at the sound machine Cole had left on my kitchen counter. They wanted me to look crazy. They wanted me to look like a bad mother. They wanted me to give up. But I wasn't going to. Not now. Not ever. Sarah's office looked like a battlefield. Stacks of legal documents covered every surface. Yellow highlighters. Coffee cups in various stages of abandonment. A whiteboard on the wall covered in scrolled notes and arrows connecting names Declan to Greg Sullivan to Eric Lawson. Eleanor to Celeste Morgan. Vanessa Cole. I sat in the chair across from Sarah's desk. Finn asleep in his carrier at my feet. And watched her type. "What are you writing?" I asked. "A motion." She didn't look up. "Motion for discovery of electronic evidence. I'm asking the court to force Elena's law firm to hand over their emails and computer records. Can you do that? If I can prove there's a legitimate reason to suspect wrongdoing." "Yes." She stopped typing. Looked at me. "Celine. We have physical evidence. The sound machine Cole found. We have the fake resignation letter. We have Celeste Morgan's name on an Amazon order. That's enough to convince a judge that something illegal is happening. What if they refuse? They can't. If the judge grants the motion, they have to comply. And if they don't, they'll be held in contempt of court." She turned back to her screen. "But Elena is going to fight this. She'll argue that we're on a fishing expedition, that we're just hoping to find something. Anything. Without proof. So, I need to make this airtight. How long will it take?" "A few days to file. Then, we'll have a hearing. If the judge agrees, he'll appoint an independent forensic expert to extract the data. Someone neutral who doesn't work for either side. And then what? Then we see what they've been hiding." 3 days later, we were in court. Travis County Courthouse. 4th floor. Family Law Division. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood-paneled walls. Fluorescent lights. A Texas flag hanging limply in the corner. Judge Linda Ramirez sat behind the bench. A woman in her mid-50s with sharp eyes and a nonsense expression. She looked like someone who'd heard every lie, every excuse, and wasn't impressed by any of them. Sarah stood at one table. Across the aisle, Declan's lawyer, Maxwell Green, stood at the other. I'd seen Green before in photos Cole had taken. 50-some grey suit. Expensive watch. He had the look of someone who'd won too many cases and knew it. Declan sat beside him. Stiff and uncomfortable. He didn't look at me. "Ms. Mitchell. Judge Ramirez said you filed a motion for discovery of electronic evidence." "Explain." Sarah stood. "Your Honor, my client has been the victim of a systematic harassment campaign designed to make her appear unfit as a mother. We have physical evidence of devices planted in her home. We have fake emails sent from her account. And we have reason to believe that employees of Elena Ashford and Associates, specifically a junior associate named Celeste Morgan, are responsible." Maxwell Green stood. "Objection. Your Honor, this is a fishing expedition. Miss Mitchell has no concrete proof that my co-consul's firm is involved. She's asking the court to invade the privacy of a respected law office based on speculation." "Your Honor," Sarah said calmly, "we have Miss Morgan's name on an Amazon order for the device found in my client's apartment. We have timestamps that match the harassment incidents. This isn't speculation. This is a reasonable suspicion of criminal activity." Judge Ramirez leaned back. "Mr. Green, you're saying Miss Mitchell has no proof?" "Correct. Your Honor. Ms. Mitchell. You have a device with Ms. Morgan's name on it?" "Yes. Your Honor. Ordered 2 weeks before it was found in my client's apartment. Shipped to AP. Box registered to Ms. Morgan." The judge nodded slowly. "That's not speculation. That's evidence." She looked at Maxwell. "Mr. Green, I'm inclined to grant the motion. Do you have a reason why I shouldn't?" Maxwell hesitated. "Your Honor, even if Ms. Morgan ordered the device, that doesn't mean it was part of a conspiracy. It could be coincidence." "Coincidence?" Judge Ramirez said the word like she was tasting something sour. "A junior associate at your co-consul's firm orders a baby cry sound machine and it ends up in the plaintiff's apartment used to make her look like a negligent mother. That's your defense." "Me." Maxwell said nothing. Motion granted. Judge Ramirez said. She banged her gavel. I'm appointing Rachel Moore, certified forensic analyst, to extract data from the computers of Eleanor Ashford and Associates, specifically Miss Celeste Morgan's workstation and any email servers related to this case. All data will be reviewed in camera before being admitted to the record. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks. She stood. Court adjourned. Sarah turned to me as we walked out. That went well. What does in camera mean? I asked. It means the judge will review the emails privately first before they're made public. It protects attorney-client privilege, but only if the emails aren't related to a crime. If they are privileged, doesn't apply. So, if Eleanor and Celeste were planning this, then their emails are fair game. 2 weeks later, Sarah called me. We got them. I was at the park with Finn pushing him in the baby swing. I stopped. What? Rachel extracted the data. The judge reviewed it. Celine. We have everything. She read me the highlights. Email 1. Celeste to Declan. February 12 th. Device placed. No one will trace it back to us. Neighbor already complained about the crying. Email 2. Eleanor to Celeste. February 20 th. Make sure Celine looks unstable. We need documented proof of her incompetence for the judge. Email 3. Draft in Celestia's computer. Timestamped February 18 th. A draft resignation letter. The exact same one sent to my design firm. Email for Eleanor to someone listed as VC February 25 th. Thank you for the updates on Celine's routine. Declan appreciates your cooperation. Feed slowly. Vanessa Cole. Yep. Declan's girlfriend. She's been feeding them information about you. I sat down on a bench. My hands shaking. They were all in on it. Every single one of them. Declan. Eleanor. Celeste. Vanessa. This was a coordinated effort to destroy you. What happens now? Now we go to trial and we bury them. That night I sat in my apartment and read the emails Sarah had sent me. Every word felt like a knife. Make sure Celine looks unstable. Documented proof of her incompetence. No one will trace it back to us. They'd planned this. Every humiliation. Every loss. Every moment I'd felt like I was losing my mind. But they'd made one mistake. They'd underestimated me. And now I had proof. The courtroom smelled like old wood and stale air conditioning. I sat at the plaintiff's table. Sarah beside me. A stack of documents between us. My hands were folded in my lap to keep them from shaking. Finn was with Tessa. My best friend had taken the day off work to watch him. I'd kissed his forehead that morning. Whispered, "Mama's fighting for you." And tried not to cry. Across the aisle. Declan sat next to Maxwell Green. Declan wore a navy suit I'd never seen before. His hair freshly cut. His expression blank. He looked like a stranger. Judge Ramirez entered and we all stood. "Be seated," she said, settling into her chair behind the bench. She opened a file. Scanned it briefly. Then looked up. "This is a temporary custody hearing for Finn Harper Ashford, minor child of Celine Harper and Declan Ashford. The purpose of this hearing is to determine custody arrangements while we await the full trial." She looked at Maxwell. "Mr. Green, you may begin." Maxwell stood. "Thank you, Your Honor." He buttoned his jacket. Walked to the center of the room. "My client, Declan Ashford, is a financial analyst with a stable income of $120,000 per year. He has no criminal record. He has strong family support. Ms. Harper, on the other hand, is currently unemployed. She lives in a one-bedroom apartment in North Austin with no consistent income. She has documented mental health concerns in her medical records, specifically related to postpartum psychosis. I felt my chest tighten. Sarah leaned over and whispered, "Breathe. We're going to dismantle this." Maxwell continued, "Additionally, we have a witness. Mrs. Dolene Patterson, Miss Harper's neighbor, who can attest to incidents of neglect. Mrs. Patterson heard the child crying for 3 consecutive hours one evening with no intervention from Ms. Harper." Judge Ramirez looked at me, then at Sarah. "Miss Mitchell, do you wish to respond?" Sarah stood. "Yes, Your Honor. With respect to Mr. Green's claims, I'd like to present evidence that directly contradicts them." "Proceed." Sarah walked to our table, picked up a small black device, and held it up. "Your Honor, this is a baby cry sound machine. It was found hidden in the ventilation system of Miss Harper's apartment by a private investigator, Cole Webb. This device was used to simulate the sound of a crying baby, specifically to deceive Miss C. Harper's neighbors into believing she was neglecting her child. She set the device on the evidence table." Maxwell stood. "Objection. Your Honor, there's no proof that device was placed by anyone associated with my client." Sarah smiled faintly. "Actually, Your Honor, there is." She pulled out a printout. "This is an Amazon order receipt. The device was purchased by Celeste Morgan, a junior associate at Elena Ashford and Associates, the law firm representing Mr. Ashford. It was shipped to A.P.O. box registered in Miss Morgan's name." Judge Ramirez took the receipt, studied it. "Go on." Sarah pulled out another stack of papers. "Additionally, Your Honor, we have emails extracted by court-appointed forensic expert Rachel Moore. These emails were reviewed in camera and approved for admission. The first email is from Ms. Celeste Morgan to Mr. Declan Ashford, dated February 12 th. She read aloud. "Device placed. No one will trace it back to us. Neighbor already complained about the crying." The courtroom went silent. The second email, Issara continued, is from Elena Ashford to Celeste Morgan, dated February 20 th. "Make sure Celine looks unstable. We need documented proof of her incompetence for the judge." I watched Declan. His jaw tightened. He didn't look at me. Maxwell stood quickly. "Objection. Your Honor, those emails are protected by attorney-client privilege. They should not be admissible." Judge Ramirez looked at him over her glasses. "Mr. Green, are you familiar with the crime-fraud exception?" Maxwell hesitated. "Yes, Your Honor." "Then you know that attorney-client privilege does not apply when the communication is made in furtherance of a crime or fraud." She looked at the emails again. "These communications appear to document a conspiracy to commit fraud and harassment." Objection overruled. Sarah didn't miss a beat. "Your Honor, we also have a third email. A draft resignation letter found in Ms. Morgan's computer timestamped February 18 th. This is the exact same letter that was sent to Miss Harper's employer, resulting in her termination." She handed the printout to the judge. "And finally," Sarah said, "we have an email from Eleanor Ashford to someone listed as VC Vanessa Cole, Mr. Ashford's girlfriend, thanking her for providing updates on M. Harper's daily routine." Judge Ramirez set the papers down. "Miss Mitchell, are you alleging that Mr. Ashford, his mother, and his legal counsel conspired to sabotage your client?" "Yes, Your Honor. That's exactly what I'm alleging. And we have evidence to support it." The judge turned to Maxwell. "Mr. Green, do you have a response?" Maxwell looked like a man drowning. "Your Honor, we will need time to review these allegations." "I'm sure you will." Judge Ramirez leaned back in her chair. "Let me be clear. If these allegations are proven, this is not just a custody issue. This is criminal fraud. Harassment. Obstruction of justice. She looked at Declan. Mr. Ashford, do you understand the seriousness of what's being presented here? Or Declan stood. Your Honor. Maxwell grabbed his arm. Don't say anything. Judge Ramirez raised an eyebrow. Sit down. Mr. Ashford. Declan sat. The judge picked up her pen. Made several notes. I need time to review all the evidence submitted today. However, based on what I've seen, I am not comfortable granting Mr. Ashford custody at this time. She looked at me. Ms. Harper. Temporary custody of Finn will remain with you. Mr. Ashford. You are granted supervised visitation 4 hours per week at a court-approved facility. A supervisor will be present at all times. Relief flooded through me so fast I thought I might collapse. We will reconvene in 2 weeks for the next hearing. Judge Ramirez said. In the meantime, I expect both parties to conduct themselves appropriately. Court adjourned. She banged the gavel. Sarah turned to me as people started filing out. We did it. We did it. I repeated my voice. Shaking. Across the aisle. Declan stood, his face pale. Maxwell was whispering something to him, urgent and low. Declan shook his head, yanked his arm away, and walked out. Sarah watched him go. His rattled. Good. What happens now? I asked. Now we prepare for the next hearing. And Celine. She looked at me. This was just round 1. That night I sat in my apartment with Finn on my chest. His tiny hand curled around my finger. I thought about the courtroom. About the emails Sarah had read. About the look on Declan's face when the judge said criminal. He'd tried to take Finn from me. But I wasn't going to let him. Not now. Not ever. My phone rang at 7 o'clock in the morning. I was feeding Finn, half awake, a cold cup of coffee on the side table. When I saw Cole's name on the screen, I answered immediately. Cole. Celine. I need you to sit down for this. I was already sitting. But something in his voice made my stomach drop. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Actually, it might be the best news we've had in weeks. Vanessa Cole wants to talk. I blinked. Vanessa, Declan's girlfriend. Yeah. She reached out to me last night. Said she wants to meet. She's willing to cooperate. Cooperate with what? With us against Declan. I sat there stunned. Why would she do that? I don't know yet. But Sarah thinks it's worth hearing her out. Can you meet us at Riverside Cafe in an hour? I looked down at Finn. His tiny hand wrapped around my finger. Yeah. I'll be there. The cafe was one of those places that tried too hard to be trendy. Reclaimed wood tables. Exposed pipes. A chalkboard menu with 15 different oat milk options. I found Cole at a corner table. And sitting across from him was Vanessa Cole. She looked smaller than I expected. Blonde hair pulled into a messy bun. No makeup. Dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing jeans and an oversized sweater. And when she saw me, she looked like she wanted to disappear. I sat down slowly. Why am I here? Vanessa swallowed hard. I need to tell you something about Declan. I already know plenty about Declan. I know. But I know more. She glanced at Cole. Then back at me. And I want to help. But I need something in return. What immunity? I looked at Cole. He nodded. Sarah's already been in touch with the district attorney. If Vanessa cooperates, full disclosure evidence testimony. She won't be prosecuted for her role in this. Her role. I felt anger rising in my chest. You mean helping Declan destroy my life? Vanessa flinched. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know it was going to go this far. You followed me. You reported my schedule to Eleanor. You helped them sabotage me. I know. Her voice cracked. And I'm sorry. I thought I was helping Declan get away from a bad situation. He told me you were unstable, that you trapped him with a baby, that you were dangerous. She wiped her eyes. I believed him. I loved him. Loved. I said coldly. Past tense. She nodded. Last week, I found out he'd been lying to me about everything. Cole pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Vanessa and Declan opened a joint bank account 6 months ago. They were planning a future together. Or so she thought. 2 weeks ago, Declan withdrew $35,000 from that account. I stared at the bank statement. 35,000. He told me it was for legal fees. Vanessa said bitterly. He said Eleanor was expensive and he needed to pay her upfront. But then Cole showed me the truth. Cole pointed to another document. The money went to pay off gambling debts. Declan owed the Oasis Casino $43,000. He used Vanessa's money to cover part of it. Vanessa's hands were shaking. I gave him everything. I thought we were building a life together and he used me. I didn't feel sorry for her. Not yet. So, you're turning on him because he stole from you? No. She looked me in the eye. I'm turning on him because I heard him on the phone with Eleanor last week. He said, after this is done, I'll get rid of Vanessa. She knows too much. The cafe went quiet. He was going to throw me away. Vanessa whispered. Just like he's trying to throw you away. The only difference is you have something he wants. I was just collateral. Sarah arrived 20 minutes later carrying a leather briefcase and a determined expression. She sat down, pulled out a legal pad, and looked at Vanessa. Let's talk terms. The DA's office has agreed to grant you full immunity in exchange for your cooperation. That means no charges for conspiracy, harassment, or obstruction. But you need to give us everything. Emails, text messages, recorded conversations, and you'll testify in court. Vanessa nodded. I will. I have emails. I have texts. I kept everything because I thought it would prove I loved him. She laughed bitterly. Turns out it's going to put him in jail instead. Sarah made notes. Tell me what you know. Start from the beginning. Vanessa took a breath. I met Declan in October. I was at a networking event downtown and he introduced himself. He was charming. Confident. He told me he was going through a divorce. That his wife was mentally ill and had trapped him with a pregnancy. I felt bad for him. So, you started dating? Sarah said. Yeah. And pretty quickly. He started asking me for favors. He wanted to know where Celine went. What she did. Who she saw. He said he was worried she'd try to keep the baby away from him. I thought I was helping. And you reported back to Eleanor. I said. Vanessa nodded. Eleanor would email me always from a personal account. Never the firm. She'd ask things like, does Celine have any close friends? Where does she go during the day? I didn't think it was that bad. I thought they were just preparing for the custody case. What about the sabotage? Cole asked. The fake pizza. Orders. The resignation letter. The sound machine. I didn't know about those until later. Declan mentioned something about making Celine look bad. But he never gave me details. When I found out about the sound machine. When you traced it to Celeste. I started asking questions. That's when Declan told me to stop. He said, you don't need to know everything. Just trust me. But you didn't. Sarah said. No. I started keeping records. Screenshots of texts. Recorded phone calls. I had a feeling something was wrong. Sarah leaned forward. Vanessa. Did Declan ever tell you his real motive? Why he wanted custody? Vanessa nodded. He said if he got sole custody, he'd control the trust fund. $15 million. He said once he had access to it, he'd put Finn in his mother's care. Eleanor loves kids. Apparently. And we'd move to California. Start over. My blood ran cold. He was going to take my son and leave the state. Yeah. Vanessa looked at me, and for the first time I saw genuine regret in her eyes. I'm sorry. Celine. I really am. I was an idiot. I thought he loved me. I thought we had a future. But he was just using me the same way he's using everyone else. After Vanessa left, escorted by Cole to sign paperwork at the DA's office, Sarah and I sat in silence. Do you believe her? I asked. Yeah, Sarah said. People don't turn on someone they love unless they're cornered. Vanessa's cornered, and she's smart enough to know that cooperating is her only way out. What happens now? Now we use her testimony to destroy Declan's case. She's going to be our star witness. I looked out the window watching people walk by. Mothers with strollers. Couples holding hands. Normal lives. I almost feel bad for her. I said quietly. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Why? Because she loved him and he broke her the same way he tried to break me. Sarah closed her notebook. The difference is, Celine, you didn't break and you're not going to. That night I held Finn close and thought about Vanessa's words. He was going to take my son and leave the state. Not if I had anything to say about it. Sarah's call came on a Tuesday morning. Celine, the hospital finished the audit. We need to go in today. I was standing in my kitchen. Finn on my hip. Trying to make coffee with one hand. The morning light filtered through the window, casting soft shadows across the counter. Vin was 3 months old now, starting to smile when I made silly faces. His tiny hand curled around my finger like he was holding on for dear life. What did they find? I asked, setting down the coffee pot. I don't know yet. Mr. Cole, the IT director, wants to present the results in person. Can you be there at 2? Yeah, I'll be there. I hung up and looked down at Finn. His dark blue eyes stared up at me. Unfocused. But curious. We're going to find out who did this to us. Buddy, I whispered. Today. We get answers. Dell Children's Hospital looked different in daylight. The automatic doors slid open with a soft whoosh. And the lobby was bright. Clean. Almost cheerful. Families sat in the waiting area. Kids played in the corner with oversized foam blocks. It was hard to reconcile this place with the nightmare that had started here 4 months ago. But as I walked through those doors with Sarah beside me, I felt the same knot in my stomach I'd had the day I gave birth. This was where it started. Where someone had planted the lie that I was mentally unstable. And today we were going to find out who. Mr. Richard Cole met us in a conference room on the 3rd floor. He was maybe 50 with graying hair and the tired eyes of someone who'd spent too many hours staring at computer screens. He wore a white button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. A hospital ID badge clipped to his belt. When he shook my hand, his grip was firm but apologetic. M. Harper. Ms. Mitchell, he said, gesturing to the chairs around the table. Thank you for coming in. I want to start by apologizing. What happened to your medical records should never have happened. We take patient privacy very seriously and this breach is unacceptable. I sat down slowly. Finn asleep in his carrier at my feet. What did you find? Mr. Cole opened his laptop and pulled up a spreadsheet. He turned the screen toward us. This is an audit log. A record of every person who accessed Miss Harper's file during her hospital stay. Under HIPAA regulations, we're required to track every login, every action, every change made to a patient's record. He pointed to a line highlighted in yellow. On January 15th at 2:37 a.m. An account under the username EL2457 accessed your file. M. Harper. That account belongs to Eric Lawson. a former IT staff member who was terminated in 2023 for violating security protocols. I blinked. He doesn't work here anymore. Correct. His access should have been revoked when he left. But due to a clerical error, one we're addressing immediately, his credentials remained active in our system. Sarah leaned forward, her pen poised over her legal pad. What did he do to the file? Mr. Cole clicked to the next screen. The note appeared in a small box. Clinical and cold. Patient expresses concern about potential postpartum psychosis tendency. Discussed risk factors. Patient appears anxious. I felt my face flush. My hands clenched in my lap. I never said that. I know. Mr. Cole said quietly. Dr. Bennett confirmed as much. She was your attending physician during your pregnancy. And she has no record of that conversation. We went through all of her notes. Her calendar. Her patient logs. There's nothing. He clicked again. In fact, Dr. Bennett wasn't even in Austin that night. She was at a medical conference in San Antonio, the Southwest OBGYN Summit. We have hotel check-in records showing she arrived at the Marriott Riverwalk at 6:00 p.m. on January 14th. We have conference attendance logs showing she was present at a keynote lecture at 8:00 p.m. We have her credit card statements showing purchases at the hotel restaurant that evening and breakfast the next morning. She didn't return to Austin until January 16th. Sarah wrote something down. So, someone used her credentials to make it look like she wrote the note. Exactly. Mr. Cole pulled up another screen. We also trace the IP address of the login. Every time someone accesses our system, we log their IP address, the digital location of their computer. This login came from Houston. Houston. I repeated. Yes. Specifically an IP address registered to a residential area in northwest Houston near the Willowbrook area. We cross-referenced it with Mr. Lawson's current address on file with the Texas Workforce Commission. It matches. Sarah sat back, crossing her arms. So Eric Lawson using stolen credentials belonging to Dr. Bennett logged into the hospital system from his home in Houston and altered Sellen's medical records. That's correct. And this is a federal crime. Mr. Cole nodded grimly. HIPAA violations are taken very seriously by the federal government. Unauthorized access to medical records carries penalties of up to $100,000 per violation and up to 10 years in prison. Falsification of medical data. What? Mr. Lawson did carries even harsher penalties up to $250,000 in 10 years. We reported this to the FBI 2 days ago. I felt a surge of relief so strong I thought I might cry. They arrested him. Yes. Yesterday morning. FBI agents from the Houston field office picked him up at his apartment. He's currently in federal custody awaiting arraignment. Sarah asked. Did he say anything? Did he cooperate? His lawyer contacted the FBI this morning. He's willing to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence. That's all I know at this point. Mr. Cole closed his laptop and looked at me. Miss Harper. I can't undo what happened. But I want you to know that we've already implemented new security protocols. All terminated employees' access is now revoked immediately. We've added two-factor authentication to our system. And we're conducting a full review of every record accessed in the past 2 years to ensure no other breaches occurred. Thank you, I said quietly. He stood. If you need anything else, more documentation, testimony, anything, please let me know. We'll cooperate fully with your case. Sarah and I left the hospital an hour later after signing paperwork and receiving copies of the audit report. We sat in her car in the parking lot. The afternoon sun beating through the windshield. I stared at the folder in my lap thick with printouts. Timestamps. IP addresses. Login credentials. Cold clinical proof of what Declan had done. What happens now? I asked. Eric's looking at 10 years in federal prison and a $250,000 fine. That's the maximum penalty for HIPAA violations involving falsification. But if he cooperates, the DA can offer him a deal. Reduce sentence in exchange for testimony. Will he cooperate? Oh, he'll cooperate. No one wants to go to federal prison for 10 years. She pulled out her phone. Scrolled through her messages. Cole already talked to his contact at the FBI. Eric's lawyer reached out this morning. He's willing to talk. What did he say? He said he was hired by a middleman named Greg Sullivan. Sullivan contacted him through Telegram and encrypted messaging app. Offered him $10,000 cash to alter the medical records of a new mother. And add a note about postpartum psychosis concerns. Did Eric know it was me? No. He didn't even know your name until the FBI showed him the file. All he knew was that someone was paying him to falsify records. Sarah looked at me. But here's the important part. Eric kept records. Screenshots of his conversations with Greg. Proof of payment. $10,000 deposited into his account 2 days after he made the change. And Greg will lead back to Declan. Exactly. We already know from Cole's surveillance that Declan withdrew $12,000 cash on January 10th. Greg deposited $10,000 on January 12th. 2 days later, Greg wired $10,000 to Eric. It's a clean paper trail. I leaned back against the seat, staring at the hospital in front of me. So, we can prove it. We can prove Declan paid someone to destroy my medical records. Yes. And once Eric officially testifies, Declan's not just losing custody. He's going to prison. That night, I sat in Finn's room rocking him to sleep. The audit report was on my phone. Pages and pages of timestamps. IP addresses. Login credentials. Cold clinical proof of what Declan had done. He'd tried to make me look crazy. He'd paid someone to invade my medical records to plan a lie that could have destroyed my life. But he'd failed because the truth always leaves a trail. Sarah's voice was careful when she called. Celine. I need you to come to my office. There's someone who wants to meet you. Who? Thomas Ashford. Declan's uncle. I froze. His uncle. He says he has information about the trust fund. About Jonathan Ashford, Finn's grandfather. He wants to help. This could be a trap. I know. That's why I told him he could only meet with us if he brought his own attorney. He agreed. He'll be here at 3. I walked into Sarah's office at 2:45. Finn strapped to my chest in the carrier. My hands were sweating. I didn't know what to expect. Thomas Ashford was already there. He stood when I entered, a tall man in his early 60s. Silver hair. A grey suit that looked expensive but not flashy. His face was lined. His eyes sad. He looked like someone carrying a heavy burden. Ms. Harper. He said quietly. Thank you for agreeing to see me. I didn't sit. Why are you here? Because my nephew is destroying his own family. And I can't stand by and watch it happen anymore. Beside him sat another man. Late 50s, balding. Wearing glasses and a navy blazer. He stood and extended his hand. David Marshall. I'm Mr. Ashford's attorney. I specialize in estate law. Sarah gestured to the chairs. Please sit. I sat slowly, keeping Finn close. Thomas sat across from me. His hands folded on the table. He looked at Finn for a long moment. And something shifted in his expression. Grief maybe. Or regret. He's beautiful. Thomas said. What do you want? I asked. Thomas took a breath. I need to tell you about my brother. Jonathan Ashford. Finn's grandfather. I know who he is. He set up the trust fund. Yes. $15 million. But there's something you don't know. Thomas glanced at David. Who nodded? Jonathan is 83 years old and he has Alzheimer's. I blinked. What? He was diagnosed in June of 2023 by Dr. Richard Patel, a neurologist in Austin. Early stage Alzheimer's. His memory is deteriorating. He has good days and bad days. But legally he hasn't had the capacity to make complex financial decisions for almost 2 years. Sarah leaned forward. Why are you telling us this? Thomas looked at her. Because in January of this year, 3 weeks before Finn was born, Declan went to Jonathan's house and tricked him into signing an amendment to the trust. My stomach dropped. What kind of amendment? David Marshall opened a folder and slid a document across the table. This is a copy of the original trust established in 2020. According to the terms, Finn Harper Ashford will receive $15 million when he turns 18. Until then, the funds are managed by a third-party corporate trustee. In this case, Texas Trust and Fiduciary, a professional trust management company. Neither parent has access to the money. Okay, Sarah said. So, what changed? David slid another document across. This is the amendment Declan had drafted. It was written by a lawyer named Brian Holloway, someone Declan hired privately. The amendment changes the terms. It says that if Declan is granted sole custody of Finn, he becomes the trustee, and as trustee, he can access the funds immediately, not when Finn turns 18. The justification is for the care and benefit of the child. I felt cold. So if Declan wins custody, he controls $15 million. Thomas finished. And there's no oversight. He could spend it however he wants as long as he claims it's for Finn. That's fraud. Sarah said flatly. It is. David agreed. But there's more. Jonathan didn't understand what he was signing. He has Alzheimer's. He lacks the legal capacity to amend a trust. Thomas reached into his own briefcase and pulled out a medical file. This is Jonathan's medical record from Dr. Patel. It states clearly patient lacks capacity to make complex financial decisions as of June 2023. Jonathan couldn't legally sign that amendment, which means it's void. Sarah took the file. Scanned it. How did you get this? I'm Jonathan's brother and his medical proxy. I have legal access to his records and you're willing to provide this as evidence? Yes. Thomas looked at me. Miss Harper. I didn't know what Declan was doing until last month. Jonathan started getting confused. He kept asking me, why did Declan make me sign those papers? I didn't know what he was talking about. So, I went through Jonathan's files and I found the amendment. I confronted Declan. What did he say? Thomas's jaw tightened. He laughed. He said, Dad won't remember anyway, and no one can prove I did anything wrong. I felt a surge of rage. David pulled out another document. This is an email from Declan to Brian Holloway, dated January 5th. It says, I need full control of the trust before Finn turns 5. Draft the amendment ASAP. I'll get Dad to sign it. Sarah took the email. Where did you get this? Brian Holloway is a colleague of mine. David said. When I contacted him about the amendment, he was horrified. He didn't know Jonathan had Alzheimer's. Declan never told him. Brian provided the email voluntarily. Thomas pulled out one more thing. A USB drive. And this is security camera footage from Jonathan's house. Declan installed the cameras 2 years ago, supposedly for Jonathan's safety. But they record everything. He opened his laptop, plugged in the drive, and played the video. The footage showed Jonathan's living room. Date stamped January 8th, 2025. Time 11:42 a.m. Declan walked in carrying a folder. Jonathan was sitting on the couch looking frail and confused. Hey, Dad, Declan said. I need you to sign something. What is it? Jonathan asked. Just some insurance paperwork. Nothing important. Sign here. Jonathan squinted at the paper. I don't understand. It's fine. Dad. Trust me. Just sign. Jonathan signed. His signature was shaky. Barely legible. Declan took the paper. Smiled. And walked out. The video ended. I sat there staring at the screen. My hands shaking. He lied to him. I whispered. He lied to his own father. Yes. Thomas said quietly. And that's why I'm here. I won't let Declan get away with this. David closed his laptop. Ms. Harper. Ms. Mitchell. My client is providing this evidence voluntarily through proper legal channels. This is not witness tampering. This is disclosure. Mr. Ashford is acting as a concerned family member who wants to stop a fraud. Sarah looked at me, then at Thomas. Why now? Why didn't you come forward sooner? Because I didn't know. Thomas said. His voice breaking slightly. I didn't know until it was almost too late. But I know now. And I can't let my nephew destroy this family any more than he already has. After Thomas and David left, Sarah and I sat in her office surrounded by documents. He just gave us everything I said. Yeah. Trust amendment. Medical records. Emails. Video evidence. This is elder abuse. This is fraud. Declan's not just losing custody. Celine. He's going to prison. I looked down at Finn asleep against my chest. He didn't just want my son. I said quietly. He wanted to steal from his own grandfather. Sarah nodded. And now we can prove it. The call came on a Wednesday morning. Sarah's voice was steady, but I could hear the excitement underneath. Celine. They took the deal. Both of them. I sat down on the edge of my bed. Finn asleep in the bassinet beside me. Outside. The morning sun slanted through the blinds, casting stripes across the worn carpet. I'd barely slept the night before, my mind cycling through worst-case scenarios. Eric recanting, Greg lawyering up, the paper trail dissolving into smoke. Both I repeated Eric Lawson and Greg Sullivan. They signed plea agreements yesterday. Karen Rodriguez wants us downtown at 2 o'clock to go over their statements. Karen Rodriguez was the assistant district attorney assigned to the criminal side of the case. I'd met her once briefly after the FBI arrested Eric. She was sharp mid-40s with close-cropped hair and a nonsense manner that reminded me of a high school principal. Sarah had warned me that prosecutors didn't take plea deals lightly, especially in cases involving fraud, elder abuse, and falsification of medical records. If Karen was offering reduced sentences, it meant Eric and Greg had something worth trading. 2 hours later, Sarah and I walked into the Travis County DA's office on West 8th Street. The building smelled like coffee and old paper. Karen met us in a small conference room on the 3rd floor. She had a stack of manila folders in front of her and a recorder on the table. "M. Harper," she said, shaking my hand. "Thank you for coming. I know this hasn't been easy." I nodded. "What did they say?" Karen opened the first folder. "Let's start with Greg Sullivan. He's facing charges of conspiracy to commit fraud, obstruction of justice, and acting as an unlicensed intermediary in a criminal scheme. Maximum exposure: 12 years. He took a deal for 30 months in exchange for full cooperation and testimony." She slid a transcript across the table. I scanned the first page. Greg's statement was blunt, almost casual. "I met Declan Ashford at the Oasis Casino in December 2024. He was losing badly. Maybe 20 grand over 2 nights. We got to talking. He said he needed a favor. Something discreet. He offered me $12,000 cash to find someone who could alter hospital records. He wanted his wife to look unstable postpartum psychosis. That kind of thing. I didn't ask why. I found Eric Lawson through a guy I knew in IT circles. Declan gave me the cash on January 10th, 2025. I passed $10,000 to Eric on January 12th. I kept $2 as a finder fee. I set the transcript down. My hands were shaking. Sarah leaned forward. Did Greg know about the trust fund? The custody plan? He says no. Karen replied. He claims he thought it was a standard divorce case, husband trying to get leverage. But his testimony places Declan at the center of the conspiracy. That's what matters. She opened the second folder. Eric Lawson is a different story. He was facing federal HIPAA violations up to 10 years and a $250,000 fine plus state charges for falsifying medical records. He took a deal for 40 months and agreed to testify about the specifics of the alteration. She handed me another transcript. Eric's statement was longer, more technical. Greg Sullivan contacted me via Telegram on January 12th, 2025. He said a client needed a medical record modified. He didn't give me a name at first. Just said it was a new mother at Dell Children's Hospital. He offered $10,000 cash. I used my old IT credentials account, L2457, to log in remotely from Houston at 2:37 a.m. On January 15th. I added a clinical note under Dr. Sophia Bennett's name stating the patient had exhibited signs of postpartum psychosis during labor. I knew it was illegal. I did it anyway. I kept screenshots of the Telegram conversation and a record of the wire transfer as insurance. Karen tapped the folder. Eric didn't know your name until after his arrest. But his audit trail is ironclad. IP logs. Timestamps. Screenshots. Everything. And his testimony corroborates Greg's. I felt a strange hollow clarity settling over me. 4 months. I'd been fighting shadows. Sabotage. Whispers. Forged notes. Now the shadows had names. They had voices. They were sitting in federal holding cells signing away their freedom to save their own skins. What about Declan? I asked. Karen's expression hardened. Based on Eric and Greg's testimony, plus the evidence your team provided, Vanessa Cole's cooperation, Cole Webb's surveillance, the trust amendment, Thomas Ashford's disclosure, we're moving forward with criminal charges. She listed them on her fingers. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Elder abuse deceiving Jonathan Ashford to alter the trust. Obstruction of justice. The sabotage campaign against you. Falsification of medical records through a paid intermediary. Custodial interference attempting to gain sole custody through fraudulent means. What's the sentence? Sarah asked. If convicted on all counts, 10 to 15 years. Possibly more if we can prove premeditation dating back to your pregnancy. I thought of Declan standing in our apartment at 2 o'clock in the morning. Drunk. Handing me divorce papers with a smirk. I thought of him whispering into his phone in the hospital. This baby is worth $15 million. Will he take a deal? I asked. Karen shook her head. His lawyer, Maxwell Green, tried to negotiate. Declan refused. He thinks he can win. Sarah let out a short, bitter laugh. Of course he does. Karen closed the folders. The custody hearing is still your primary focus. But now we have leverage. Declan isn't just fighting for custody. He's facing prison time. That changes everything. We left the DA's office an hour later. The sun was bright. Almost blinding. I stood on the sidewalk holding my purse. Feeling the weight of 4 months lift slightly off my shoulders. Sarah touched my arm. You okay? I nodded. Yeah. I think I am. Declan wasn't just losing custody. He was facing prison. And for the first time since Finn was born, I believed I might actually win. The courtroom smelled like old wood and stale coffee. I sat at the plaintiff's table. Finn asleep in his carrier beside me. Sarah shuffling papers to my left. Across the aisle, Declan sat rigid in a charcoal suit, his jaw tight. Maxwell Green leaned close, whispering something. Declan didn't respond. Judge Linda Ramirez entered at 9 sharp. We all stood. She was a small woman with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a bun. Her reading glasses perched on her nose. She'd presided over the temporary custody hearing in March and had granted me interim custody after seeing the baby cry sound machine in the emails. Today was different. Today Sarah would present everything. Ms. Mitchell. Judge Ramirez said, settling into her chair. You may proceed. Sarah stood. She moved to the center of the courtroom holding a blue binder. Her voice was calm, almost conversational. But every word landed like a hammer. Your Honor. Over the past 4 months, my client has been the target of a coordinated conspiracy to deprive her of custody of her infant son. The evidence we will present today demonstrates fraud, elder abuse, falsification of medical records, and obstruction of justice, all orchestrated by the respondent, Declan Ashford, with the assistance of his mother, Eleanor Ashford, and her associate, Celeste Morgan. Maxwell Green started to rise. Objection. Your Honor. Counsel is Judge Ramirez held up a hand. Save it. Mr. Green. I'll hear the evidence first. Sarah opened the binder. Exhibitor audit logs from Dell Children's Hospital showing that on January 15 th. 2025 at 2:37 a.m. a former IT employee named Eric Lawson used his old credentials to access Ms. Harper's medical record and insert a false clinical note alleging postpartum psychosis. She slid a printed log across the bench. Judge Ramirez scanned it. Her expression unreadable. Exhibit B, sworn testimony from Eric Lawson, who has accepted a plea deal with the Travis County District Attorney. Mr. Lawson states he was paid $10,000 by intermediary Greg Sullivan to alter the record. Mr. Sullivan in turn received $12,000 in cash from Mr. Ashford on January 10 th. 2025. Sarah handed up bank statements showing Declan's ATM withdrawal. Exhibit C, testimony from Vanessa Cole, Mr. Ashford's former girlfriend. Miss Cole confirmed she began an affair with Mr. Ashford in October 2024 while Miss Harper was 6 months pregnant. Ms. Cole also provided email correspondence showing she tracked Miss Harper's schedule at the request of Eleanor Ashford. I watched Declan's face. His jaw twitched. But he didn't look away. Sarah continued. Exhibit D, financial records showing Mr. Ashford has accumulated $87,000 in gambling debts at the Oasis, an illegal casino in South Austin. He withdrew $35,000 from a joint account he shared with Miss Cole in March 2025 without her consent. Maxwell Green stood again. Your Honor. My client's personal finances are not relevant; they're relevant to motive, Mr. Green. Judge Ramirez said flatly. Overruled. Continue. Ms. Mitchell. Sarah's voice sharpened. Exhibit E. A forged trust amendment purportedly signed by Jonathan Ashford in January 2025. Mr. Jonathan Ashford, age 83, was diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's in June 2023 and lacked legal capacity to sign financial documents. Security footage from the Ashford residence shows Mr. Declan Ashford deceiving his father into signing the document by telling him it was insurance paperwork. She played a 15-second video clip on the courtroom monitor. I'd seen it before, but it still made my stomach turn. Jonathan, frail and confused, holding a pen. Declan leaning over him, smiling. Just sign here, Dad. It's nothing important. Judge Ramirez's lips pressed into a thin line. Exhibit F. Testimony from Thomas Ashford, Jonathan's brother, and a retired federal judge. Mr. Thomas Ashford has provided the original 2020 trust document, which stipulates that the $15 million trust fund established for Finn Harper cannot be controlled by a parent until Finn turns 18 and only through an independent third-party trustee. The forged amendment attempted to give Mr. Declan Ashford immediate control upon gaining sole custody. Sarah paused, letting the words settle. This is not a custody dispute, Your Honor. This is elder abuse fraud and a criminal conspiracy to steal $15 million using an infant as leverage. Maxwell Green was on his feet. Your Honor. This is outrageous. Sit down. Mr. Green, Judge Ramirez said. Her voice was ice. I've heard enough. She turned to Declan. Mr. Ashford. The evidence against you is overwhelming. You are facing criminal charges. Your mother and her associate are facing disbarment and possible prison time. If this case goes to trial, you will lose custody entirely, and you may spend the next 10 to 15 years in prison. Declan's face flushed red. Maxwell leaned close, whispering urgently. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw Declan shake his head. Judge Ramirez folded her hands. I am giving you 48 hours to consider a settlement. Ms. Mitchell has proposed the following terms. You relinquish all claims to sole custody. Ms. Harper receives full legal and physical custody. You are granted supervised visitation twice per month for 2 hours each. You pay all attorney fees incurred by Ms. Harper. And you cooperate fully with the district attorney's investigation in exchange for a reduced sentence of 3 to 5 years. She looked at Declan over her glasses. If you refuse, we proceed to trial, and I promise you, Mr. Ashford, you will not like the outcome. Maxwell whispered again. Declan's hands clenched into fists on the table. Then loud enough for the room to hear, he said, I'm not giving up $15 million because of some manipulated evidence. Maxwell closed his eyes. Sarah's expression didn't change, but I saw her shoulders relax slightly. Judge Ramirez sighed. Very well. Trial is set for June 2 ND. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell. We left the courtroom 20 minutes later. The hallway was crowded. Lawyers, clerks, families waiting for other hearings. I was halfway to the elevator when I heard a voice behind us. You can't let them win, Declan. I turned. Eleanor Ashford stood in the corridor 20 feet away. She was 58. Slim. Dressed in a grey tailored suit. Her hair was silver and cut short. Her eyes were cold. Declan stood beside her. His face still flushed. How, Mother? They have everything. Eleanor's voice dropped. But Cole was standing next to me, and his hearing was sharp. Leave that to me. Cole touched my elbow. We need to go. Why? I asked. He didn't answer until we were outside standing on the courthouse steps in the midday sun. Then he turned to me. His face grave. When cornered predators are about to lose, he said quietly, they do the most desperate things. I looked back at the courthouse doors. Eleanor was still inside. So was Declan. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a new kind of fear. The call came at 10 o'clock on a Thursday night. Finn had just fallen asleep in his crib, and I was folding laundry in the living room, my phone on the coffee table. When it rang, the screen showed a number I didn't recognize. Austin area code, but not one I'd seen before. I almost didn't answer. Cole had warned me about unknown numbers, but something made me pick up. Hello. Silence. Then a breath sharp and uneven. Celine. It was Declan. His voice was thick, slurred. He'd been drinking. I set down the towel in my hands, my pulse quickening. 2 weeks ago, Cole had installed a call recording app on my phone. I tapped the screen twice. A small red dot appeared in the corner. Recording. What do you want? Declan. He laughed low and bitter. What do I want? I want you to drop this case. I want you to disappear. I want my life back. Your life. I said quietly. You mean the $15 million? Don't act self-righteous. His words came faster now. Angrier. I don't care about Finn. I never did. This was always about the money. You think I wanted to be a father? You think I wanted to be tied to you for 18 years? My hands were shaking. I pressed the phone harder against my ear. Then why file for custody? I asked. Because the trust fund goes to whoever has custody. You idiot. Sole custody means sole control. I could have used that money to pay off my debts. Start over. Get out from under my mother's thumb. But you had to fight. You had to make this difficult. I forced myself to breathe. Declan. This call is being recorded. Everything you just said is evidence. A pause. Then my mother warned me you'd be stubborn. She's handling it. You won't see it coming. The line went dead. I sat there staring at the phone. The recording timer showed 3 minutes and 47 seconds. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I called Cole. He arrived 20 minutes later, moving fast up the stairs to my second-floor apartment. I let him in, locking the door behind him. He listened to the recording twice, his face unreadable. This is good, he said finally. Criminal threat admission of fraud conspiracy. We can use this, he said. Eleanor is handling it. I said. What does that mean? Cole didn't answer right away. He stood at the window looking down at the parking lot. Then he turned. I need to show you something. He pulled out his phone and played an audio file. The sound quality was good. Too good to be a random recording. I heard a woman's voice crisp and cold. Eleanor. I'm paying you $25,000 to do one thing. Go to Celine Harper's apartment. Tomorrow at noon. Pretend to be a CPS caseworker and take the baby. My blood went cold. A man's voice replied rough and uncertain. What if she calls the cops? She won't have time. You'll be in and out in 5 minutes. And if she does? The fake court order will buy you enough time to disappear. Eleanor again. I don't care about the child. I care about my son and that $15 million. This ends tomorrow. Cole stopped the recording. I couldn't speak. My chest felt tight. My lungs unable to pull in air. Who is that? I finally whispered. Ray Kowalski. 42. Former Austin PD officer fired in 2021 for falsifying evidence. He's been working as an unlicensed private investigator. Eleanor hired him 3 days ago. How did you court-approved surveillance? Cole said after the hearing last week. Sarah filed a motion for a wiretap on Eleanor's office. Judge Ramirez granted it based on reasonable suspicion of conspiracy. I've been monitoring her calls for 48 hours. I sank onto the couch. Finn was asleep in the next room. Tomorrow. Eleanor was planning to take him tomorrow. What do we do? I asked. Cole sat across from me. His voice steady. First. I'm staying here tonight. I'll be in the parking lot watching every car that comes in. Second. Sarah is calling the FBI and Austin PD right now. They'll have plainclothes officers stationed outside by morning. Third. If Ray Kowalski shows up, I'll detain him under citizen's arrest and call 911 immediately. What if Eleanor tries something else? She won't. Cole said this is her last move. If it fails, she's done. I wanted to believe him. But Eleanor had spent 4 months orchestrating a conspiracy to destroy me. She'd hired hackers, bribed intermediaries, deceived her own father. She wasn't going to stop just because Cole was watching. What about Declan? I asked. He's a coward, Cole said flatly. He won't do anything himself. He'll let his mother take the risk. But that recording you made, that's enough to charge him with criminal threat and conspiracy. Between your call and Eleanor's, we have everything we need. Sarah called 10 minutes later. Cole put her on speaker. FBI is sending 2 agents tomorrow morning. She said they'll be parked across the street starting at 9:00. Austin PD is assigning a patrol unit to your building. If RY shows up, he'll be arrested on site. What about Eleanor? I asked. She'll be arrested the moment RY makes contact with you. Conspiracy to kidnap, impersonation of a government official, criminal threat. She's looking at 10 to 20 years. I closed my eyes. And the trial's still happening Monday. Sarah said. But after tomorrow, Declan and Eleanor won't be in any position to fight. This is over, Celine. We just have to get through the next 24 hours. Cole stayed that night. He slept, if you could call it that, on my couch with his phone in his hand and his car keys on the coffee table. I didn't sleep at all. I sat in Finn's room watching him breathe, my hand resting on the side of his crib. Eleanor's voice echoed in my head. I don't care about the child. Tomorrow she would try to take him. And tomorrow we would be ready. The knock came at 12:05. I was in the kitchen heating a bottle for Finn when I heard it, 3 sharp raps on the door. My heart jumped. I set the bottle down and moved to the peephole. A man stood in the hallway. He was maybe 40, wearing a grey suit and a blue tie. A laminated badge hung from a lanyard around his neck. He held a clipboard in one hand. Ms. Harper. His voice was calm, professional. I'm Daniel Foster, caseworker with Child Protective Services. I have a court order requiring me to conduct an emergency welfare check on your son. My pulse hammered in my ears. Cole had warned me. Sarah had warned me. But hearing it happen, seeing a man standing outside my door claiming he had the right to take Finn, made my chest tighten. I didn't open the door. Can you slide the order under the door? A pause. Then a sheet of paper appeared beneath the gap, folded once. I picked it up with shaking hands. It looked official. Typed. Formatted. Stamped. At the top, Travis County Family Court. Emergency removal order. At the bottom, a signature that looked like Judge Linda Ramirez's name. I pulled out my phone and called Sarah. She answered on the first ring. Celine. There's a man at my door, I said quietly. He says his CPS. He has a court order with Judge Ramirez's signature. Describe it. I read the heading. The case number. The wording. Sarah was silent for 5 seconds. Then she said, her voice sharp. That's a forgery. Judge Ramirez never signed that. I just checked the court system. There's no emergency order filed. Do not open the door. Call 911 right now. I hung up and dialed 911. But the man outside must have heard me moving because his tone changed. Miss Harper, I need you to open the door. If you refuse to comply with a court order, I'll have to force entry. I'm calling the police. I said loudly. My back pressed against the wall. You're making this harder than it needs to be, he said. Then I heard a thud. His shoulder against the door. I ran to Finn's room, scooped him out of his crib, and locked us in the bathroom. My phone was in my hand. 911 dispatcher asking questions I could barely answer. Finn started crying. Another thud. The door frame creaked. Then I heard a different voice. Low and cold. Step away from the door. You're under citizen's arrest. Cole. A scuffle. A shout. The sound of something or someone hitting the floor. Footsteps fast and heavy. Then voices. Multiple overlapping FBI hands behind your back. Don't move. I stayed in the bathroom for another minute, holding Finn, my hands over his ears. Then someone knocked, gentle this time. Celine. It's Cole. You're safe. I opened the door. The hallway was crowded. Ray Kowalski, because that was his real name, not Daniel Foster, was face down on the carpet, hands cuffed behind his back. 2 FBI agents stood over him. 3 Austin PD officers were securing the area. Cole had a split lip and blood on his knuckles. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded. He threw the first punch. "I just finished it." One of the FBI agents, a woman in her 30s with short, dark hair, approached me. "Miss Harper, I'm Special Agent Lisa Monroe. We've been monitoring this building since 9 this morning. We have everything on camera. Are you and your son unharmed?" I nodded, unable to speak. Agent Monroe turned to RY, who was being hauled to his feet by 2 officers. "Ray Kowalski, you are under arrest for attempted kidnapping, impersonation of a federal official, assault and falsification of court documents." They read him his Miranda rights as they led him down the stairs. I watched, holding Finn against my chest. He'd stopped crying. He didn't understand what had just happened. But I did. Elelena had tried to take him. By 3:00. Sarah had filled me in on the rest. Ray Kowalski had been arrested, searched, and interviewed. In his jacket pocket, officers found a white envelope containing $25,000 in cash. In his phone, they found text messages from Eleanor Ashford. "Take the baby to 1847 Barton Creek Boulevard. Don't call until you're there." The address was Eleanor's home in Westlake. Ray also had the forged court order, a fake CPS badge, and printed instructions on how to handle uncooperative parents. Within 2 hours, he'd accepted a plea deal, 5 years in prison in exchange for full testimony against Elelena. His statement was damning. "Eleanor Ashford hired me 3 days ago. She paid me $25,000 in cash to impersonate a CPS worker and take Finn Harper from his mother. She gave me the fake court order and told me to bring the baby to her house. She said once she had custody, her son Declan would control a $15 million trust fund. I didn't ask questions. I just did the job." Eleanor was arrested at her law office at 12:30. FBI agents walked into Eleanor Ashford and Associates with a warrant. Elelena was sitting at her desk, phone in hand, waiting for Ray's call. She never got it. "Eleanor Ashford, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, impersonation of a government official, falsification of court documents, and criminal threat." She didn't resist. She didn't speak. She simply stood, held out her wrists for the cuffs, and walked out of her office in front of her colleagues and clients. Her face was blank, but her eyes cold. Calculating never left the agents. That afternoon at her arraignment hearing, Assistant District Attorney Karen Rodriguez argued that Elelena should be denied bail. "Your Honor, Miss Ashford orchestrated a criminal conspiracy to kidnap an infant for financial gain. She hired a former police officer to impersonate a government official, forge court documents, and forcibly remove a child from his mother. She poses an ongoing danger to the victims and a significant flight risk given her financial resources and legal connections." Judge Michael Torres, a federal criminal judge, didn't hesitate. "Bail denied. Miss Ashford, you will remain in custody pending trial." Elelena was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. No bail. No second chances. That night, Cole sat in my living room while I rocked Finn to sleep. The apartment was quiet. Outside, a patrol car sat in the parking lot just in case. "It's over," Cole said. I looked at him. "Is it Eleanor's in jail? Ray's in jail. Declan's facing 10 to 15 years. Celeste and Eric have already taken plea deals. You have full custody. Celine. The trial on Monday is just a formality now." I nodded slowly. Finn's breathing evened out in my arms. For the first time in 4 months, I allowed myself to believe it. Eleanor Ashford. The woman who had orchestrated 4 months of terror was behind bars. And this time, she wasn't getting out. Before I tell you what happened in that conference room, before I reveal the one thing Declan never saw coming, I need to know you're still here. Comment truth if you want to hear the rest. This next part is where everything comes together. But I have to warn you. Some details ahead are fictionalized for storytelling purposes. If that's not your thing, you can leave now. But if you're ready to see Declan finally face the consequences, let's finish this together. The call came 3 days after Eleanor's arrest. I was at home feeding Finn when Sarah called. Maxwell Green wants a settlement meeting. Off the record. Just you, Declan, and the lawyers. He's trying to avoid trial. I set down the bottle. What does he want? Supervised visitation. No custody fight. Full payment of attorney fees. He knows they're going to lose. I thought about it. For 4 months, Declan had hidden behind lawyers, intermediaries, hired criminals. I'd never looked him in the eye and told him what he'd done to me, what he'd tried to do to Finn. I'll meet him, I said. But I'm not going to settle. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then why go? Because I want him to hear it from me. I want him to know that I know exactly who he is. The meeting was set for 2 o'clock at Sarah's office. Cole drove me. Finn was with a babysitter. Sarah had insisted I not bring him. This could get ugly, she'd said. When I walked into the conference room, Declan was already there. He sat across the table. Maxwell Green beside him. Declan looked terrible. His suit was wrinkled. His tie loose. His eyes were red-rimmed. His hands shaking slightly as he reached for a glass of water. He didn't look at me. Maxwell stood. Miss Harper. Thank you for coming. My client is prepared to offer. I don't want to hear his offer, I said. Cutting him off. I set my bag on the table and pulled out 4 manila folders. I placed them in front of Declan one by one. This, I said. Tapping the first folder, is your gambling debt. $87,000 at the Oasis Casino. I opened the second folder. This is surveillance footage of you and Vanessa Cole kissing at the Fairmorn Hotel. Meeting at bars. Withdrawing $35,000 from her account. The third folder. This is the recording of your phone call. The one where you told me to drop the case or I'd disappear. And the fourth. This is security camera footage from your father's house. You telling an 83-year-old man with Alzheimer's that he was signing insurance paperwork when it was actually a fraudulent trust amendment. Declan's jaw clenched. He still didn't look up. I leaned forward. Declan. For 4 months. You made me believe I was losing my mind. You falsified my medical records. You sabotaged my job. You tried to steal our son. And when that didn't work, your mother tried to kidnap him. All for $15 million. Maxwell started to speak. Miss Harper. This is not. I'm not finished. My voice was steady cold. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table. I have the recording from the night you called me drunk. Do you remember what you said? Declan finally looked up. His face was pale. I pressed play. His voice filled the room. I don't care about Finn. I never did. This is about $15 million. Drop the case or you'll disappear. Cole, standing by the door, was recording everything on his phone. Texas was a one-party consent state. Everything Declan said here was admissible. Declan's hands clenched into fists. That's not you. Twisted. Stop lying. I said you called Finn a lottery ticket. A key to the vault. You told Vanessa you'd hire a nanny and travel the world once you had custody. You never wanted to be a father. You only wanted money. Declan stood up his chair, scraping back. Maxwell grabbed his arm. Declan. Don't. But Declan yanked free. His face was red. His voice shaking. You don't understand. That money was supposed to be mine. My father set it up for grandchildren. But I'm his son. I'm drowning in debt. $87,000. I needed that money to survive. So, you used your own baby as collateral? I said quietly. Finn doesn't need $15 million. He's a baby. Declan shouted. He doesn't even know what money is. But I do. I needed it to pay off my debts to start over to be free. And you? He pointed at me, his hand shaking. You ruined everything you hired. Lawyers. Investigators turned everyone against me. You made me look like a monster. You are a monster. I said. The door opened. Thomas Ashford walked in. He was 61. Dressed in a grey suit. His silver hair neatly combed. Behind him was David Marshall, his estate attorney, carrying a leather briefcase. Declan froze. Uncle Thomas. What are you? Thomas didn't look at him. He looked at me. Miss Harper. I apologize for the intrusion. But there's something Declan needs to hear. Something I've been holding on to for a year. He turned to Declan. I've been waiting for this moment. Waiting to see if you would prove me right. And you did. David Marshall opened his briefcase and pulled out a document. He handed it to Sarah. Then to Maxwell. Finally. He placed a copy in front of Declan. This, Thomas said, is a courtesill. A legal amendment to your father's trust. Signed on June 15, 2024. Declan stared at the document. His face went white. David Marshall spoke, his voice formal. 1 year ago, Jonathan Ashford had a period of lucidity. He was concerned about his son's financial instability and behavior. So, he came to my office and signed this courtesill. It states, if any heir engages in conduct that endangers the safety or well-being of the primary beneficiary, Finn Harper, that heir shall be immediately disinherited, and all assets designated for that heir shall be transferred to a trust managed by the child's legal guardian. Thomas leaned forward. Your conspiracy to kidnap Finn. Your fraud against our father. Your threats against Celine. They triggered this clause. Declan. He paused, letting the words sink in. As of today, you are disinherited. You have no claim to the $15 million. It belongs to Finn. Managed by Celine. Declan's mouth opened. No sound came out. Maxwell Green looked at the document. His face ashen. This is legally binding. David nodded. Notarized. Witnessed. Medical records confirm Jonathan had full capacity when he signed it. The courtesill is valid. Thomas stood. You destroyed yourself. Declan. I gave you every chance to walk away. But you chose greed. And now you have nothing. I stood. Picking up my bag. I looked at Declan one last time. You were right about one thing. I said quietly. Finn doesn't need $15 million. But he does need a parent who loves him. And that will never be you. I walked out of the room. Cole followed. Sarah stayed behind to finalize the paperwork. As the door closed, I heard Declan's voice broken and hollow. No. No. This can't. But it could. And it did. Declan sat alone in the conference room, staring at the courtesill on the table. He lost everything: his son, his money, his freedom. And it was all his own doing. The courtroom was packed. Every seat in the gallery was filled: reporters, advocates from the Texas Mothers Defense Fund, and a few faces I didn't recognize. I sat at the plaintiff's table. Sarah beside me. Cole in the row behind. Finn was with a trusted babysitter. Sarah had insisted I not bring him today. Across the aisle, Declan sat slumped in his chair. Maxwell Green sat beside him. But there was a distance between them now. As if Maxwell had already given up. Declan's face was pale. Hollow. He didn't look at me. Judge Linda Ramirez entered at 9 o'clock sharp. We all rose. She settled into her seat, adjusted her glasses, and opened a thick file. Before we begin, she said, I want to acknowledge that significant developments have occurred outside this courtroom. A courtill to the Ashford Family Trust was presented 3 days ago at a settlement meeting. Mr. Green, I understand you wish to challenge its validity. Maxwell stood. Your Honor, the courtill was presented without proper notice to my client. We request. David Marshall, Thomas Ashford's attorney, rose from the gallery. Your Honor, may I approach? Judge Ramirez nodded. David walked forward carrying a leather briefcase. He handed documents to the judge, then to Sarah, then to Maxwell. This is the original courtill signed by Jonathan Ashford on June 15, 2024 at my office. It was notarized by a licensed notary public witnessed by 2 independent parties and accompanied by a signed statement from Dr. Alan Hughes, Jonathan's neurologist, confirming that Mr. Ashford had full legal capacity at the time of signing. David placed a medical record on the bench. Dr. Hughes's notes state that Jonathan experienced a period of clarity that day. He was lucid, coherent, and fully understood the legal implications of the document he was signing. Judge Ramirez reviewed the documents for several minutes. Then she looked at Maxwell. Mr. Green, the courtill is valid. Your objection is overruled. Maxwell sat down. Declan stared at the table. Judge Ramirez turned to Sarah. Miss Mitchell, call your first witness. Dr. Sophia Bennett took the stand. She was 45, composed, dressed in a navy blazer. She delivered Finn 5 months ago. Sarah began. Dr. Bennett, you delivered Finn Harper on January 8, 2025. Can you describe Miss Harper's mental state during and after labor? Ms. Harper was calm, attentive, and asked appropriate questions about her son's care. She showed no signs of postpartum psychosis. Sarah handed her a document. This is a medical note allegedly signed by you dated January 15 stating that Ms. Harper exhibited signs of postpartum psychosis. Did you write this? Dr. Bennett scanned it. No. I was at a conference in San Antonio that day. I have hotel receipts, attendance records, and credit card statements. This note is fabricated. In your professional opinion, is Miss Harper a fit mother? Absolutely. She is dedicated, resilient, and has provided excellent care for her son under extraordinarily difficult circumstances. Maxwell declined to cross-examine. Jessica Torres was next. She was 31. A kindergarten teacher. My best friend since college. Jessica, how long have you known Celine Harper? 12 years. I was her maid of honor. Can you describe her relationship with her son? Celine is an incredible mother. Patient, loving, devoted. I've never seen her waver even when everything was falling apart. Sarah paused. Did you ever hear Mr. Ashford make statements about his son? Jessica's jaw tightened. Yes. In November 2024 at a party. Declan told me. And I quote, "That baby is my $15 million lottery ticket. I don't care about being a dad. I just need the kid to exist long enough for me to access the trust." Maxwell stood. Objection hearsay. Your Honor. Sarah said calmly. This is a statement of intent by the respondent admissible under Texas Rule of Evidence 80033. Judge Ramirez nodded. Overruled. Continue. Cole Webb took the stand next. He was 38, sharply dressed in a dark suit. Mr. Webb, you conducted surveillance of Mr. Ashford for 2 weeks in February. What did you find? Cole opened a folder. Mr. Ashford met his girlfriend Vanessa Cole at the Fairmorn Hotel on 3 occasions. He visited an illegal casino, the Oasis, twice, losing approximately $18,000. On January 10th, he withdrew $12,000 in cash, which was later traced to Greg Sullivan, who paid Eric Lawson $10,000 to falsify Ms. Harper's medical records. He slid photographs across the bench. I also recorded a conversation between Elena Ashford and Ray Kowalski in which she paid him $25,000 to impersonate a CPS worker and kidnap Finn Harper. Sarah asked, "Did you record the settlement meeting 3 days ago?" "Yes. Texas is a one-party consent state. Miss Harper consented. So the recording is legal." Sarah played a 30-second clip. Declan's voice filled the courtroom. "Finn doesn't need $15 million. He's a baby. But I do. I needed it to pay off my debts to be free." The courtroom was silent. Vanessa Cole walked slowly to the stand. She was 29. Blonde. Dressed in black. She didn't look at Declan. "Miss Cole. How did you meet Mr. Ashford?" "October 2024. He told me he was separated. That his wife was unstable." "Did you help him?" Vanessa's voice cracked. "Yes. I tracked Celine's schedule. I didn't know it was part of a conspiracy until he stole $35,000 from our joint account." "Did Mr. Ashford ever express love for his son?" "No." Vanessa looked at the judge. "He called Finn the key to the vault. He said once he had custody, we'd travel the world on the trust fund money." Thomas Ashford was the final witness. He was 61. Gayhead. Dressed in a charcoal suit. "Mr. Ashford, please explain the courtesil." "1 year ago, my brother Jonathan was worried about Declan's financial instability. He came to David Marshall's office and signed a courtesil, stating that if any heir endangered Finn, that heir would be disinherited." Thomas's voice hardened. Declan's conspiracy to kidnap Finn triggered that clause. He is no longer an heir. The $15 million belongs to Finn. Managed by Celine. Sarah returned to her seat. "Your Honor, Mr. Ashford has no financial motive, no credibility, and no defense. He is a danger to his son. We request sole custody for Ms. Harper and no visitation rights for Mr. Ashford." Judge Ramirez turned to Maxwell. "Mr. Green, do you have any witnesses?" Maxwell stood slowly. "No, Your Honor." Judge Ramirez made a note. "We will reconvene tomorrow for expert testimony. Court is adjourned." The gavel fell. The evidence was overwhelming. Declan had no witnesses, no credibility, no hope. The next morning, the courtroom felt different. The air was heavier, charged with anticipation. I sat at the plaintiff's table. Finn, still with the babysitter. Sarah shuffled papers. Across the aisle, Declan sat motionless, staring at nothing. Judge Ramirez entered. We rose. "Ms. Mitchell, your final witness." Sarah stood. "Your Honor, the petitioner calls Dr. Rebecca Foster as an expert witness on coercive control and domestic violence." Maxwell Green half rose. "Objection. Your Honor, this is not a domestic violence case." "Your Honor." Sarah said coercive control has been recognized in Texas family law since 2023 as a critical factor in custody determinations. Dr. Foster's testimony is directly relevant to Mr. Ashford's fitness as a parent. Judge Ramirez nodded. "I'll allow it. Proceed." Dr. Rebecca Foster entered with quiet confidence. She was 42. Dressed in a charcoal blazer. Her dark hair pulled back. She took the stand. Was sworn in. And folded her hands. Dr. Foster. Please state your credentials. I hold a PhD in clinical psychology from the University of Texas and a Master of Social Work from Columbia. I have 15 years of experience working with survivors of domestic violence and coercive control. I've testified as an expert witness in over 40 family law cases in Texas. I'm a member of the American Psychological Association and have published 3 books on coercive control. Sarah handed her a folder. Have you reviewed the evidence in this case? Yes. Medical records. Financial documents. Surveillance footage. Witness testimony. Recorded phone calls. And text messages. Can you explain coercive control? Dr. Foster turned slightly toward Judge Ramirez. Coercive control is a pattern of behavior abusers use to dominate and control victims. It includes psychological manipulation, financial exploitation, isolation threats, and escalation to violence. Unlike physical abuse, coercive control is subtle and often invisible. But it's just as damaging, sometimes more so, because it erodes the victim's sense of reality and autonomy. Does Mr. Ashford's behavior fit this pattern? Yes. Textbook coercive control across 5 dimensions. She opened her folder. First, gaslighting. Mr. Ashford hired someone to falsify Miss Harper's medical records, making her doubt her mental stability. Gaslighting is one of the most insidious forms of manipulation. Second, financial exploitation. He sought custody not out of love, but to control $15 million. Multiple witnesses testified he called his son a lottery ticket. Third, isolation. He orchestrated a sabotage campaign. Fraudulent deliveries of fake resignation letter. A hidden sound device to isolate Ms. Harper socially and financially. Fourth, threats. In a recorded call, he said, "Drop the case or you'll disappear." That's a direct criminal threat. Fifth, escalation to violence. His mother conspired to kidnap Finn. Mr. Ashford was aware and complicit. This is the most dangerous phase when psychological manipulation fails. Abusers resort to force. Dr. Foster closed the folder. Your Honor, coercive control harms not just the adult victim, but the child. Children in such environments suffer anxiety attachment disorders and difficulty forming healthy relationships. In my professional opinion, Mr. Ashford poses a direct danger to Finn Harper. Sole custody must go to Miss Harper with no visitation or only highly supervised visitation for Mr. Ashford. Maxwell stood for cross-examination. Dr. Foster, you were hired by Miss Harper's attorney. Doesn't that create bias? I was retained to provide an objective analysis. My findings are based on documented evidence. I've testified for both plaintiffs and defendants. My duty is to the truth. But you've never met Mr. Ashford. I don't need to. The evidence speaks for itself. Maxwell sat down. No further questions. Judge Ramirez made a note. Then she looked at Declan. Mr. Ashford, before I issue my ruling, I want to hear from you. Do you have anything to say? But Maxwell leaned close, whispering urgently, Declan, don't. Stay quiet. But Declan's hands were clenched on the table. His face was flushed. For 5 months, he'd been cornered, exposed, humiliated. And now trapped in a courtroom with nowhere to hide. Something inside him broke. He stood. I don't care anymore. His voice was loud, shaking. The money is gone. Everything is gone. What do you want from me? Judge Ramirez's voice was sharp. Mr. Ashford, sit down. No. Declan's face was red, veins standing out on his neck. You all act so righteous. Like I'm the only one who's ever used someone. Everyone uses someone. That's how the world works. Maxwell grabbed his arm. Declan. Stop. Declan yanked free. Yes. I used Finn. Yes. I wanted the money. But I'm not a monster. I'm just realistic. He's a baby. He doesn't need $15 million. But I did. I needed it to survive. Judge Ramirez slammed her gavel. Mr. Ashford. If you do not sit down immediately, I will hold you in contempt of court. Declan froze. His breathing was ragged. Slowly, he sank back into his chair. His hands were shaking. His face was pale. The courtroom was silent. Judge Ramirez's voice was cold. Mr. Ashford, you just admitted under oath that you used your infant son as a tool for financial gain. You have shown no remorse. No understanding of the harm you've caused. You are a textbook example of everything Dr. Foster described. She looked at Maxwell. Mr. Green, I strongly suggest your client remain silent for the remainder of these proceedings. Maxwell nodded, his face ashen. Judge Ramirez turned to the courtroom. I have heard enough. We will reconvene tomorrow morning for my final ruling. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell. As the courtroom emptied, I sat frozen. Sarah touched my arm. You okay? I nodded. Across the aisle, Declan sat with his head in his hands. Maxwell had already left. Declan had destroyed himself twice. Once outside the courtroom and now inside it. There was nothing left to save. The courtroom was silent when I walked in. It was 9 o'clock on a Thursday morning, and the air felt heavy. Final. I sat at the plaintiff's table. Sarah beside me. Cole sat in the row behind. Arms crossed. Finn was with the babysitter again. Sarah said. This was something I needed to face alone. Across the aisle, Declan sat slumped in his chair. Maxwell Green was there. But he looked defeated. Resigned. Declan's face was blank. Empty. He didn't look at me. Judge Linda Ramirez entered carrying a thick file. We all stood. She settled into her seat, adjusted her glasses, and opened the file. I have reviewed all evidence, testimony, and legal documents submitted in this case. She began. Her voice was steady, formal. This has been one of the most disturbing custody cases I have presided over in 20 years on the bench. She looked at Declan. Mr. Ashford, you falsified medical records to make your wife appear mentally unstable. You defrauded your 83-year-old father, who suffers from Alzheimer's disease, in order to steal control of a $15 million trust fund. You carried on an affair while your wife was pregnant. You accumulated $87,000 in gambling debts. You orchestrated a sabotage campaign designed to isolate and discredit Ms. Harper. You conspired with your mother to kidnap your infant son. And you threatened Ms. Harper's life. She paused, letting the words settle. Most disturbing of all, you have repeatedly stated both in recorded conversations and under oath that you view your son not as a human being, but as a financial instrument. A lottery ticket. A key to the vault. Judge Ramirez turned a page. Dr. Rebecca Foster testified that your behavior constitutes a textbook pattern of coercive control. She stated that you pose a direct danger to Finn Harper's safety and well-being. I agree with her assessment. She looked at me. Ms. Harper, you have demonstrated extraordinary resilience, courage, and dedication to your son. You have fought to protect him at every turn despite facing fraud, harassment, and threats. You are a fit and loving mother. She closed the file. Therefore, I issue the following orders. Sole legal and physical custody of Finn Harper is granted to Celine Harper. Mr. Declan Ashford is granted no visitation rights at this time. If at some point in the future, after serving any criminal sentence and completing court-mandated therapy, Mr. Ashford petitions for supervised visitation, this court will consider such a request. But as of today, he has no parental rights. Declan didn't move. His face was pale, expressionless. Judge Ramirez continued without pausing. Mr. Ashford is ordered to pay all attorney fees incurred by Miss Harper in this case. Based on the invoices submitted, that amount is $153,000 payable within 90 days. Maxwell made a note, but he didn't object. There was no point. Judge Ramirez turned to a separate document. On June 15, 2024, Jonathan Ashford signed a codicil to the Ashford Family Trust. That codicil states that if any heir engages in conduct that endangers the safety or well-being of the primary beneficiary, that heir shall be immediately disinherited, and all assets designated for that heir shall be transferred to a trust managed by the child's legal guardian. She looked at Declan. Mr. Ashford, your actions conspiracy to kidnap, elder abuse, fraud, threats triggered this clause. The codicil is legally valid. I am issuing a formal order recognizing its terms. Declan Ashford is hereby disinherited from the Ashford Family Trust. The $15 million designated for Finn Harper will be held in trust managed solely by Celine Harper until Finn turns 18. At that time, an independent third-party trustee will oversee the fund as originally intended by Jonathan Ashford in 2020. Declan's jaw clenched. His hands gripped the edge of the table. Judge Ramirez's voice grew colder. I am issuing a 10-year protective order. Mr. Ashford is prohibited from contacting, approaching, or communicating with Miss Harper or Finn Harper in any way except through court-approved supervised visitation, should such visitation ever be granted. Additionally, I am referring this case to the Travis County District Attorney for criminal prosecution. Mr. Ashford, you face charges of conspiracy to commit kidnapping, elder abuse, fraud, falsification of medical records, and criminal threats. If convicted on all counts, you face 10 to 15 years in prison. She leaned forward, looking directly at Declan. Mr. Ashford, you did this to yourself. You had every opportunity to walk away, to settle, to accept responsibility, but you chose greed, manipulation, and violence. You exploited your own father. You conspired to kidnap your own son. And now you will face the consequences. She turned to me. Miss Harper, you and your son are free. You are safe. I hope you find peace. She picked up her gavel. This court is adjourned. The gavel fell. I sat there unable to move. Sarah squeezed my hand. It's over. Celine, you won. Across the aisle, two bailiffs approached Declan. They placed handcuffs on his wrists. He didn't resist. He didn't look at me. He was led out through a side door, disappearing into the hallway. Elena was already in prison. Celeste had been disbarred. Eric and Greg were serving their sentences. And now Declan was gone, too. I stood, gathered my things, and walked out of the courtroom. Cole was waiting in the hallway. He gave me a small nod. You did it, he said. I nodded. I couldn't speak yet. The weight of 5 months, the fear, the anger, the exhaustion was lifting slowly like fog burning off in the morning sun. Sarah walked me to the elevator. What are you going to do now? I thought about it. Go home. Hold my son. Start over. She smiled. That sounds perfect. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my new apartment in North Austin, watching Finn crawl across the living room floor. He was 11 months old now, chubby and happy, babbling to himself as he reached for a toy truck. The December sun streamed through the windows, warm and bright. I'd gone back to work as a graphic designer, freelancing from home, so I could be with Finn every day. The trust fund was secure, managed through a court-appointed financial advisor. I didn't touch it. It was Finn's. And it would stay that way until he turned 18. Declan was in Travis County Jail awaiting trial. His criminal case was set for February. Eleanor had been sentenced to 8 years for conspiracy to kidnap. Celeste was serving 3 years of probation and had been permanently disbarred. Eric Lawson and Greg Sullivan were both in prison. Thomas Ashford visited once a month. He brought gifts for Finn and apologized over and over for his nephew's actions. I told him it wasn't his fault. He was the one who'd saved us. I didn't think about Declan anymore. I didn't hate him. I didn't fear him. He was just gone, a chapter I'd closed. Finn looked up at me and grinned, his 2 bottom teeth showing. I knelt down and scooped him into my arms. "It's just you and me, buddy," I whispered. "And that's all we need." Outside, the December sun was warm. The sky was clear. We were free. Looking back now, I see how close I came to losing everything. Not just custody of Finn. Not just my sanity. But myself. When you're trapped in a situation like mine, when you're facing family betrayal from the people who should protect you, it's easy to believe you're powerless. Declan's family revenge was methodical, brutal, and designed to destroy me. His mother, his lawyer, even his girlfriend. They all participated in a conspiracy built on lies, greed, and family betrayal at its worst. But here's what I learned. God sees everything. When I felt most alone, when I had no money, no job, no hope, God sent Sarah Mitchell, Cole Webb, and Thomas Ashford into my life. When Eleanor tried to kidnap Finn, God made sure Cole was there. When Declan tried to steal the trust fund, God had already inspired Jonathan to sign that codicil a year earlier. I don't believe in coincidences anymore. I believe in divine intervention. If you're in a situation like mine, trapped in a toxic marriage, facing family revenge, dealing with coercive control, please don't wait. Document everything. Record conversations. Hire a lawyer. Reach out to shelters, advocacy groups, anyone who can help. Don't be like me and wait until your baby is almost kidnapped to take action. And remember, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. Even when it feels impossible, He's working behind the scenes. My advice: trust yourself. Trust God. And never ever let greed-driven people convince you that you're the problem. You're not. They are. If this story resonated with you, please leave a comment below. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. Thank you so much for watching until the end. I know this was a heavy journey and I'm grateful you stayed with me. A final note. The stories on this channel contain some fictionalized elements and are created for educational purposes. If this content isn't for you, feel free to explore other videos that better suit your preferences. Take care and stay